call the special meeting of the Mountain View Town Council to order on August 3rd, 2026 at 6:32 p.m. Will you all please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mayor Mitchum.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Algeen.
Here.
Councilmember Bailey.
Here.
Councilmember Davis.
Concentrating.
Councilmember Davis.
Yes.
Councilmember Debner.
Here.
Councilmember Lasher.
Here.
Councilmember, that's it.
Thank you. We have a quorum. Do have any council members have a conflict of interest relating to any agenda items? I hear a no from Councilmember Davis. He's saying he can't hear us at all. We do hear you. Can you hear us now, Councilmember Davis?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So hearing no conflicts of interest, we'll move on. Do any council members wish to make a motion to amend the agenda tonight? Hearing none, we'll consider the agenda approved. Agenda item 5 is the first hour or so of our workshop. Today is the MVCC zoning project, and our town attorney, Austin Pierce Flanagan, has the floor.
Excellent. Okay, so our agenda today, we've made it to the consolidated draft. And I'm going to start by doing a quick trial run. I like to start my consolidateds this way, where I'm going to go through just one question for the sake of time, but if we have more time, we can come back to it later, of how you'd answer just one question under the current code versus the new code. And then we're going to go into procedures, and then we're going to go into our consolidated list of questions, and then we're going to finish with public comment. So that's our plan for today. So for the trial run, I thought we would answer the question of what does it take and what are the requirements for getting an ADU approved in the R2 zone district. So you already know you're in the R2 zone district, you want to build an ADU, you've opened up the municipal code. Let's see where you go from there. This is under your current code. So we know it's a zoning question, so it's probably going to be in this chapter 16, although I would be questioning whether this chapter 17 might be relevant to you, but let's start in chapter 16. Okay, so here's your table of contents. Well, I know I'm in my R2 district, so maybe I'll look there. General provisions, not sure what that is, might have to look there later. There's permitted uses down here as well, and some site approval process, but let's just start with the R2 zone district and see if we can find our answer there. Okay, I see it's got a list of principal permitted uses here as well. I'm not seeing a list of accessory uses, but let's see if we can find it otherwise. Alright, so there's your principal permitted uses, no ADU there, so hopefully it's somewhere else.
You can also just search ADU.
Here's your lot and building standards, and so you can see that these probably apply to all structures and uses in the town, although it's not specific, so there's still sort of a question there. It might only apply to these two, single family and two family, and maybe the rest are somewhere else. Okay, so we've got some mention of accessory structures here, and how that plays into the minimum lot coverage. Okay, so I need to keep that in mind for my ADU. All right, so now we've got some detached accessory structure standards. Okay, so this will definitely apply to my ADU. So we haven't figured out whether it's permitted yet, but we have figured out some of the standards for that use here. And they are different from those standards just above. Okay, so that helps, and you can see that they've got a set of dimensional standards here. Looks like a different minimum lot size actually than what was just above in that other table, and it looks like a couple of different can we turn off the volume on there? Okay, cool, thank you.
I asked him.
Okay, thank you. And you can see some exceptions here. It looks like we're getting some exceptions for height and also, again, minimum lot coverage. Okay. So that gives me some idea of how I need to build this ADU. Let's see if there's some other standards lurking in here. It looks like we've got some exceptions to the bulk plane there. That might be relevant. Is there anything else in this R2 section that's going to be relevant for my ADU? Okay, so now we're in general requirements. Is there anything here? Looks like it. All lots shall have the principal structure and associated principal permitted use established on the lot before the detached accessory structure. Okay, so that sounds like I need to have my principal structure before I build my ADU. It also seems like a development plan is required for all permitted uses except single family and two family. I wonder if that means my ADU needs a development plan. Not sure. That'll be another question. Okay, so that's what this table, or this section, has told me so far. So to recap, it told us some of those dimensional standards for both the principal and accessory use, and it had sort of different standards, even minimum lot size standards for those two uses in that same district. Haven't figured out whether it's actually permitted by right still, but the dimensional standards seem to think that, or seem to indicate that it is. I'm guessing if we go to this permitted uses here, that will help answer my question. And voila, okay, there we go. So it looks like we are allowed to have accessory uses, but it requires a conditional use permit in my R2 zone district. And it looks like it also requires some other standards down here. So let's go check those out. Let's go down. All right, so we've got some, again, requirements related to how the structure must be built. This almost looks like similar, though not the same language as the language we just saw before, what structures have to come first. All right, we've got some additional dimensional standards. I hope this is the same as the table. It looks like we've got some parcel standards. Oh, this is different, right? Didn't it say 5,000 in the table before?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so this one's different as well, right? That's how we have to build that structure. And it looks like this one's different too. The actual size of the unit is different here than what we saw on that table before. Okay, so we have some idea of how this is going to be built. I still don't know if a site plan is required. It said it was exempt for single family and duplexes. You'd think it might be exempted for accessory structures then too, but I'm not positive. And maybe if we go to this site approval process section, I might be able to find that answer. Let's see if I need a site plan in addition to a conditional use permit here. And it looks like it's actually, okay, it's lagging a bit. Here we go. Okay, so it looks like, yeah, for all structures except single family and two family. So in the current code, I found out that there's 3 different sets of dimensional standards for my ADU. Some of them are consistent, some of them aren't, so I'll have to just work through that with staff and probably the town attorney. I know I'll need a conditional use permit. I know I'll also need a site plan. That's more or less how you go through the process of figuring out how you build an ADU in the current code. Let's go to the proposed new code, see if it's any different. Sorry, I'm getting a crazy lag. Here we go. All right, so again, the question is, can I build an ADU, and it will now be the R1 district, and how do I have to build it? All right, so looking here, it looks like I'm gonna be in my permitted uses table. So let's jump there. That should tell me what uses are allowed in my district. And it looks like we've got categories here that breaks up. I know an ADU is an accessory use, so let's scroll down to that section. It looks like these are alphabetized. I can see it is allowed as an accessory use by right with a couple of standards. Let's see what kind of standards are required. All right, so just a couple. It's just that the accessory, there can't be more than one. Can't exceed the primary dwelling unit square footage. And it can't be subdivided later to create its own legal lot. Seems pretty simple. Let's see what kind of approval is required. So we know that's allowed by right. I don't need a conditional use permit for it. But going back to that site plan requirement, let's see if we can find that answer. So I'm going to go to the review procedures. Let's see if this summary table has it. Well, it's not a subdivision, it's not an ordinance amendment, it's not flexibility or relief or vested rights, so it must be in this category of development permits here. It's none of these, so it must either be a minor or major site plan. So it's one of these two applications. And it looks like the only difference in the approval of these processes is that one is approved administratively by staff, a minor site plan, and the other requires town council approval. Let's go and see what the difference is between the two. All right, so I probably am going to have an ADU bigger than 200 square feet. So that probably means I'm actually going to be required to have a major site plan. So council will have to approve that application, at least as drafted now. And that answers those questions. So hopefully that gives you some idea of the model that we were working in versus the model we're going to. In your current code, not only do you have the same topic covered in multiple places, like as I showed, uses are listed within each district chapter, but also in the table, and hint, they're not consistent. Your dimensional standards are listed in 4 places, and hint, they're not always consistent. And it's really hard for me to understand what actual approval is required for those applications. So in your new code, you solve all those problems. And so I want to start there as a way to realize some of the broader impacts of this project. That this project wasn't just to change the standards themselves. For instance, change whether a conditional use permit is required for an ADU or not. It's not just that. It's that we're going beyond that, and we're also saying, what kind of organizational improvements can we make? What kinds of wording improvements can we make? How can we make this as consistent and streamlined as possible? So I like to start there in Consolidated to say that sometimes when we go through this process, we can get caught on really contentious matters. And it's hard for us to see beyond those matters. We see just sort of what is the big policy diversions, and we can kind of get stuck on them. But I hope that you also see all of the broader benefits of this project. And I hope that we also see that those initial goals that council had of sort of responding to the community's needs and responding to the town's long-term needs have also been addressed. Even if it's not your perfect land use code, and it won't be, it's none of your perfect land use codes, hopefully it's a big step in the right direction from what you have today. So I wanted to start there with my little trial run. I do that with all my Consolidateds, just to show sort of what this process really did and how we sort of changed a pretty complicated code where it's really difficult to even get a project on the ground because you just can't find the answers. And when you do have sort of the tenacity to push through, it requires a ton of town resources because your staff is looking through 4 different sections, and then often they're going to have to get your town attorney involved to make some sort of legal interpretation. So with that, we're going to move on to procedures where I just left off. And we're going to go right back to that table. So this table tells you every single procedure that is in your land use code. And it tells you where the actual references in the code so you can find all the details of that procedure. That's this column here. It tells you what notice is required for that application, and it tells you who approves it and who you appeal to. So a couple of things I'll point out in the table. These asterisks here mean that a public hearing is required. So for instance, for this application, if you appeal it to the BOAA, that appeal will have to be at a public hearing. It also tells you if it's eligible for the Affordable Housing Fast Track, which is that DOLA program that council passed just a couple months ago in order to be eligible for those DOLA grant funds. And so I have integrated that resolution into this table. You'll see that with those 2 asterisks here. So for instance, these minor site plans, major site plans are subject to that process. Okay, and so I will just go through really quickly who the approval bodies are here. And like we've done in previous work sessions, I'll rely on council to just raise objection. And I think the flavor of that objection is really going to be whether council believes the decision-making bodies as listed here are correct. And then I do have a couple of other questions later in the section, but that's sort of the main piece.
Can you tell us what page we're on, where that table is?
It's 37 of the PDF, 35 of the land use code.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to go through these pretty quickly. So annexation is just subject to state law, so that's what that cross-reference is. Disconnection, which is the problem to which you actually take land out of a municipality and you put it back in the county. Surprisingly, isn't really subject to state law. State law basically just says create your own process, so that's what we've done here. And so that's sort of just minimum bar. You kind of need that process, but it is very, very rarely used. Subdivision, that's when we're dividing up lots or consolidating lots. You have two different processes there, and we'll talk about the thresholds for each. And you'll see a consistent sort of theme as we go through these applications. So that minor subdivision process is approved by staff, and appeals are heard by the BOAA. The major subdivision process is reviewed by staff, approved by town council at a public hearing, and appealed to the BOAA at a public hearing. Moving on to your development permits, again, as we just briefly talked about, your minor site plan will be administrative, approved by staff. Major site plans will be approved by town council. Your conditional use permit, also approved by town council. Temporary use permit would be administrative, same with fence permit and sign permits, meaning staff would approve all three of those. So ordinance amendments, each one of these is going to be approved by town council. So initial zoning would probably never be applicable to the town, but again, just an annexation requirement that if you ever did bring in new land, that's the process to which you zone it. Similar to a rezoning, also approved by town council. An LUC text amendment, that's an amendment to this title, would follow this separate process going forward. Same with a comprehensive plan amendment. So flexibility and relief, that's when you're asking for some sort of modification or variance to the standards in the land use code. So a variance, which is a formal process, typically asking for a higher level of modification, would be approved by your BOAA like it is today. If it's a minor modification, this is a new process I've added to your code. Those are very minimal requirements. So for instance, if you have a gable that's like 6 inches above the height requirement, that would be allowed as a minor modification. And what that means is you don't have to submit it as a separate application. You can bring it in with your underlying application. That's to be able to consolidate the time for approval. So instead of a property owner having to go through 2 separate approval processes, instead in that instance the minor modification would go as a part of your major site plan, and it would be approved either with or without the site plan from council. So council would consider both those applications together. And then appeals are noted within this table. It's those A's throughout. And then a vested right is associated with the application itself, and it's only applicable for what's called a site-specific development plan. So they're pretty rare in practice, and it's pretty much just going to be your platting process, those subdivisions. So if you want vested rights with your subdivision, you would bring it again with the underlying application. So it wouldn't be a completely separate application, you'd request it as a part of that underlying subdivision.
Just so that I understand, the BOAA variances, when they're granted, are currently appealable to like the court, right?
Yes, so right now, I believe you're correct that the BOAA has final approval authority. What I've added in here is that town council is actually the appellant on those. In other words, if, for instance, how it would work in practice is the BOAA denies a variance, that denial could be appealed to town council rather than straight to district court. We can definitely change that.
Can it then be appealed to district court?
Correct.
If council, okay, I'm good with that. I just wanted to clarify it.
So you're just adding
That's changed.
another layer within the town that the council can make a judgment call.
Yeah, I think
Before we go to
so.
court.
And I'll say, in my practice, most of my clients really prefer that, because when they had a straight to court option, sometimes their actual policymakers would be like, well, hold on,
Right.
before we get sued, let us have a chance to weigh in on the application.
That makes sense to me.
Yeah, I think it's wise. Thank you.
Yeah, great question. Okay, any other questions on this table?
I just had a question about the disconnection.
Yeah.
Because I don't think we've ever seen that in our land use code, and so I was wondering why the impetus for it to be in there, and what authority is it? That just like the home rule authority that's guiding it? Okay. And
Yeah.
then-
So even actually for statutory municipalities within Colorado, there's no prescribed disconnection policy in state law. So what state law basically says is disconnection shall be in accordance with the local governing body. And
If
so,
you don't have it.
yeah, if
then-
you don't have it, then there's no process to which to disconnect. Disconnections are incredibly rare. I include them in my land use code so you're not flat-footed. So that an applicant doesn't come before you and say, hey, where's your disconnection process? You have to have one per state law. And that way you're not creating one on the fly while you're also
I appreciate it.
administering that process.
Great, thank you.
Councilmember Dubner?
Yeah, I guess I was wondering what's the, thought behind the staff versus BOA versus town council, and with the upcoming ballot measure, how does the BOA changes like impact this table? I guess, have we considered that?
Yes, it's a great question. So 2 questions there. So as far as who approves what, I absolutely defer to council if you want to change any of these. This is kind of sorta based on what you have today, but honestly your procedures are so wildly complicated and confusing that I pretty much have to rip them out and start from scratch. Generally, what this does is mimic that for applications that are perceived to have lesser impact, for instance, a minor subdivision, if you're combining 2 lots, then those could be approved administratively, rather than if you're combining 10 lots, then that would have to go to council. And so the idea here is that we're tailoring the applications based off impact and hopefully getting those through with lesser impact and less time with less money, or less costs, I should say. As far as the BOAA, the idea is that if the charter passes, we will have an ordinance ready that will be effective upon that certification of the ballot measure passing. And it will basically just state the BOAA has all authority stated within this code, and the authority is right here in this table. And even if it doesn't pass, this still works because the charter doesn't prescribe those specific duties to this level that I can recall. Yeah.
Yeah. We have Councilmember Bailey, but are there other questions from other council members first?
Just about this topic?
Yeah. Councilmember Bailey?
When you say like that it's perceived to have a lesser impact, I'm assuming that staff would make a judgment call as to whether or not they think it'll have the lesser impact. Are there any guiding principles or documentation that, like a rubric that staff will follow, so that they're making the same, they're going through the same steps and process that they would for every applicant?
Yes. So actually my codes, I think I try to make them incredibly objective. So for instance, for minor subdivisions, you'll see just the 4 applications to which are allowed to be processed through a minor subdivision. So staff will look at these 4 applications or these 4 criteria, and if they find it's something different, then it goes through a major subdivision. And that's how all of my applications are tailored. So basically minor subdivision, like very narrow, and then major subdivision is defined as everything else. Same with minor and major site plan. Good question.
Speaking to that, can we hear from council how they feel about having ADU applications be major site plans, or is that
That
part
was
of-
one of my questions.
Okay. Yeah.
So I will get there.
Thanks.
And
Just want to make sure.
partly why I chose that example
Yeah.
is that we could.
It's a great setup.
Yeah. Any other questions on the table or comments? Okay. So one of the things I did here that
Councilmember Dubner?
Yeah, I was wondering, those staff decisions, how are those documented and maintained? Just out of a curiosity standpoint, or are those impromptu decisions during the application?
They're not impromptu. They're based on the criteria within the code. So let's just go through one so you have a idea. Let's do a minor site plan because we're going to talk about that in a minute so we can kind of segue both those conversations. So say for instance, someone comes before you and they say, hey, I'm going to build a 180 square foot detached garage. They'd come forward, they'd hopefully look at that table for themselves and they'd say, okay, I need a minor site plan. And staff will verify that to say, okay, you're constructing an accessory structure of less than 200 square feet, so you qualify for this minor site plan. Staff will then go through and see and confirm like that applicability is meet, and then they'll go up and apply and this is all in the common review procedures because I try to make all of my applications consistent among each other. They'll go to the review and decision, and they'll basically read through this entire section because it tells you exactly how you apply the criteria in the code to make a decision. They'll read the general approval criteria and confirm that the application meets these criteria. If they find that it meets the criteria, then they approve the application. And yes, it typically, or I should say, it should be and will be documented formally. And so typically, I'll work with staff to create form letters for approvals, or form letters that say we need additional information, or denial. And they basically are just plug and play. So they'll say like your application was received on this date, staff has reviewed it and confirmed it is eligible for X application, however has found it to be deficient in these 3 ways. Please resubmit with these 3 corrections, or whatever it is.
When there was a conditional use permit by a prior town administrator, he reported it to council
And included in the
and
packet, right?
included it
Yep.
in the packet. Is that a requirement here? Can we?
Not a requirement here, but that's a good way to do it too. So just for transparency, you
Policy-wise.
could definitely do that like as an administrative policy.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would be in support of that.
We'll just put that on our to-do list for policies.
Cool. So my first question here, when I went through this process, you have a home occupation permit requirement right now. So technically, if you're working from home, you need to go get a home occupation permit from the town. I got rid of that, but I wanted to confirm that council's comfortable getting rid of that process. If you remember back in the uses, basically what I did for the home occupation use is we made it accessory use by right. It's allowed everywhere, but we took the standards in your current permit and made them standards applicable to all home occupations. So they're requirements of all home occupations, but you don't have to get a separate approval. So that's how I've drafted it now, but I want to confirm council's okay with that. In other words, you won't have to go and pull a permit for that kind of use in the future.
Yes.
Okay. Sounds like we're good there.
Ever since we went through COVID.
Yeah, it's one of those that I think a lot of municipalities thought were a good idea at a time and then kind of just like fell off. That's what this process is for. Okay, so I'll move on to my next question, which I think is the ADU question. Okay, yes it is. So, as I mentioned before, really ADUs would have to get a major site plan because you're not going to construct an ADU of less than 200 square feet right now, meaning they'd have to come through town council to get approval. We have sort of gotten the preliminary head nod from DOLA on becoming an ADU certified community, but their one red flag for us was this requirement. And their recommendation was that we allow accessory dwelling units to be approved through the minor site plan process, so administratively. And so we wanted to propose that question for council. It would be a very quick add if council's comfortable with that.
Can you share why they would want us to change that?
That's part of the state's requirement to become a certified ADU community.
Mm-hmm.
And in order for us to go after the grant funding to help residents offset some costs for building the ADU, we would have to have that requirement.
Okay.
And so the thought was, since we had to give this to DOLA to review as part of our current grant, if they were giving us information to align for more grant funding, we wanted to maybe possibly tackle 2 grants with 1 project.
Yeah, and the great news is that gave us like kind of thumbs up all around. That was really the one red flag for council's consideration.
So basically, we can't do the certified ADU community and have it reviewed by council.
Correct.
Do we have ADU, maybe it was in here and I missed it, but like sizes that we're allowing them to be built? Because I was looking and Denver's is 24 feet, which is what we're doing for our houses. So what can people do for their ADUs?
24, tall?
Height, yeah.
We're also 24.
So
for
we're doing
accessory
houses
structures.
and ADUs the exact same height?
As currently drafted, however, that is on my consolidated list to talk about today.
Okay. Thank you.
So are we comfortable with where it sits right now and forfeiting the ADU friendly jurisdiction?
Can we talk about who is making that decision? Like, is it like the town administrator alongside the town attorney, or like what? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would like to do it, so I think it'd be great to get that.
So I guess, do I hear any objections to making that change? Okay.
No.
Excellent. Oops.
Was there, you said that was the only red flag or flag for the ADU? What about the parking issue? Didn't we have that also?
Oh, that might have been on my list too. Yeah, please hold. Thank you. And if it's not, let's go back there. Okay. So with that, that was all I had to talk about with procedures today. I would now jump into my consolidated list, which I sent council beforehand, unless there's any other questions. Okay. So the first one on the consolidated list, and if you look at the email I sent, I'm just going to go in order. It's chronological with the code as well. The first one is related to the R1 purpose statement, and I can't really remember who sort of led these things, so if you have additional context, please help me. But I have that there's a question of whether to add preserving the historic pattern and intensity of residential development as a part of the R1 purpose statement. Right now, it just says is intended for low-density residential uses, such and such. Does that make sense?
Do any council members have objections to leaving it the way it is, or a desire to change it?
Can you repeat that, Austin, for me, please?
Yeah, so I'm in the zoning district's purpose table for R1.
What
And-
page is that?
If you can give us a page.
Oh,
number.
yeah,
I think I
sure.
highlighted that.
It's page 6 of the land use code, so I think that's page 8 of your packet.
Page 8?
Of the packet, I think, yeah. And 6 of the land use code.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're looking at whether this purpose statement for R1, and it's really just this language here. So right now it says is intended for low density residential uses. The comment I had was to explicitly add and the preservation of the historic pattern of residential development.
I'm in support of that. I think that's one of the things we've talked about is the preservation of internally.
Okay, sounds like yes in support.
Just a quick question. What is, I mean, what does it really do except for it's kind of prefaces the code? It doesn't actually really do anything.
It's a great question. Mostly, it's sort of a big policy statement. However, for every criteria, every single application, the first criteria is that it's consistent with the purpose statement in which the district it's located in. So your staff or the town council will read this purpose statement with each application in R1.
How would you write it? To preserve the historic pattern / intensity of residential development in the town?
Yeah, something along those lines.
That's what you have in your email.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got Mayor Pro Tem's in favor of that change. Councilmember Bailey?
I feel like yes, because I feel like a lot of what we've tried to do is to sort of preserve the sort of core
Okay.
of the town.
Councilmember Lasher?
I'm a no. I feel like that's stepping into people's personal property rights, so I'm a hard no.
Okay.
Councilmember Debner?
I'm in support. I think that speaks to the was it community engagement surveys that we've heard about small town community feel, and I think that policy clarification will just make it clear.
Okay.
Councilmember Davis? Sorry. Can we hear from you again?
Yes,
Councilmember?
I'm in support of that.
Thank you. So that's, majority of council supports that.
Okay.
Should
Go
I
ahead.
just gonna follow up?
Councilmember Bailey?
Yeah.
So, it doesn't mean people cannot, if they're denied, that they can't appeal it. So it's not really stepping on their personal property rights is the way I view it. It's just a policy, a guiding decision that staff will consider when they're making decisions at the administrative level.
I don't think we need to debate this.
No, it's just a question.
It's
I'm not
already
debating,
decided
I'm just asking, I'm just trying to have a full understanding of the full purpose of it. And I feel like we don't have if with the comment like that, I don't feel like we understand the full purpose unless I'm missing something. Am I missing something about property rights?
So generally, these purpose statements are guiding policy for the district. However, they become binding on each application through the general criteria that requires all applications be consistent with the district purpose statement in which it's located. So it's a policy statement, and there's some level of interpretation there, but you couldn't have an application that council or staff viewed as being counter to the policy statement. So
You still have to fit within all the guidelines that are specified for that district. It's not like it changes those guidelines in any fashion.
right. Yeah, the standards are separate from the purpose statement for sure.
That's, yeah, okay.
Okay.
So what's the point of a purpose statement then, Austin?
Yeah, I mean, it is to set the policy of that district, and hopefully all of the standards flow from there. And it, like I said, it does become more or less binding. Like, it's the very first criteria to which the decision maker will look at the application.
Great, thank you, I appreciate your explanation.
Alrighty. So the next one I had here, I'm on table 3.1 permitted use table. It's page 7 of the land use code, page 9, I think.
Starting on 9, going on to 10 of
The
PTO.
packet. And so this next question is more general, and it's related to missing middle housing. So we're looking at this R1 permitted uses, and we're looking at the types of housing to which missing middle is typical for. So when I first look at this, I think, okay, great, you allow duplexes by right, that's a type of missing middle. Your other type of missing middles are these two. It's triplex and multifamily. Those are prohibited in that district. And so I see that really as far as like creating a bridge for missing middle, which again, when we talk about missing middle, it's really just planner created policy theory that if you allow more density in smaller spaces, the cost of housing will go down, and the middle class, the missing middle, will be able to purchase housing more easily. So that's the idea of the missing middle. So when I look at this, I see that you allow duplexes by right. That's the type of missing middle that's good if you care about missing middle housing. But triplexes and multifamily, also a type of missing middle. So really the question for council is, would you want to allow those higher intensity uses in R1, either by right or with a conditional use permit?
What, please remind me, did we not choose not to have that previously?
I think so, and I think it may have been, again, I can't remember all of the history of how I got my consolidated list. I was keeping notes through every work session. It may have either been a split vote or something where a couple of folks at least requested it come back. And so whenever that was the case, I just put it on my list for consolidated. But yes, you're correct. Everything I'm going through, we've gone through before.
Okay.
So it's really almost a practice in whether you want to change the original decision, all of this. You know.
Which we've done twice now, so good to go through it.
Yeah. Living document for sure.
Can you remind me of the sort of size and height of the triplex and multifamily dwellings?
Yeah, we are going to get there next, but let's just jump there so you sort of have more familiarity with the code. If I had that question, I know it's a dimensional standard. It has to do with the dimensions of the lot and the structure. So I know I'm in this Article 4, and here I am in dimensional standards. Okay, so here's my table, and you can see we'll have a couple of questions here in a moment. But this tells you all of the dimensional standards for all structures and uses in the town. So unlike your current code where you have this in 4 places, you have it right here, one place, for all structures and uses in the town. The only difference between primary and structure is right here from the building height. And as Councilmember Lasher said earlier, you got 24 feet for accessory across the board and varying levels of primary structure height.
Sorry, what page is that on?
Yeah, no worries. I'm on page 15 of the Land Use Code, 17 of the packet.
I have a question.
So if we were,
Okay. Looking at the setbacks, standard is usually like 5 feet from each fence. We have 3 on the southern fence, and that doesn't even align with fire codes. Fire codes are 5 feet, and since we're lowering the height and hoping we could do basements, you have to have a egress window which sticks out 3 feet. So that doesn't seem like that's very.
Would you typically have that egress window on a side yard? I think I've more typically seen them in front and rear.
Oh, mine are on side yards. Yeah.
Okay, so it would depend on the building design and the architect.
Yeah.
Of course, everything that you have in this code has to go through the fire code too. So
Right.
if there's ever sort of a higher standard, you have to meet that higher standard. Right now, you do have this wiggle room.
Right, but if we change it to 3 and then it doesn't pass the fire code, then you wouldn't be able to do it, correct? So then you wouldn't be able to have.
Right, so if the fire department came in as a part of their referral on an application, and they said, hey, they're trying to do an egress window here, and there's not enough room, then you'd have to push it in, for sure. But if that wasn't the case, for instance, if there was no egress windows on that side, perhaps it's just a solid blank wall with no doors or windows on that first level, then fire code probably won't care too much about it.
And isn't the total 10 total, so you could have 3 and 7, is that correct?
It's
Or
an
5 and
objective
5?
standard on each side now. So, and we did it based off whether it's northern or southern side to protect shade.
Okay.
Yeah, so instead of the current, right now you do have that, like right now you could do like 1 foot or no feet on one side and then put all of it on the other. So back to your question, Councilmember Bailey, of what are the dimensional standards for a triplex or multifamily? It's the same as it would be for a single family home. So it would have the same kind of dimensional requirements as a use with lower density.
It's not going to be any taller frame.
Right.
Yeah.
By all sort of intents and means, you're going to have a similar form for all types of uses in the town. This is a hybrid code, so what that means is it's a combination of a form-based code regulating how the building actually looks, and what's called a Euclidean-based code, which is a use-based code regulating what can go in the building. This is both.
One way to support affordable housing is to say a house that used to be a duplex, a property owner could say, well, I see a way to make this into a triplex and make it affordable housing. Allowing that doesn't change the size of the structure, it just changes what the property owner can do and allows for the possibility of more affordable housing.
Right, yeah, exactly. We're not talking about building form really at all. We're talking about what goes in the building, whether it's basically 2 units or 3.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I brought up like every meeting about the high water table, and it's never discussed. Is that like, are we going to ever talk about doing higher for 44th because you cannot have a basement there, or is that just we're just gonna not ever talk about?
Yeah, that's on the consolidated list, but we actually made that change per the last work session. So it's actually reflected in the dimensional standards now that we did go up on 44th.
Oh, I didn't see that. Okay.
And so we can talk about that next.
Okay.
But just with this question, let's do one at a time maybe.
Yeah.
Does council want to allow a triplex use? Let's just leave it at that. Do you want to allow a triplex use in R1? And we'll talk about the use permission if this passes.
Yes.
Don't we currently have triplexes or multifamily housing in R1?
I'm not sure how many units you'd have on a lot right now in that district.
That's non-conforming? Yeah, we have some.
So yes, it would continue to be non-conforming then under this code.
Yeah.
If you permitted it, then it would actually become conforming.
Depending on the other.
Yeah. At least a conforming use may not be
Comparing
conforming.
use, right.
Okay, Councilmember Bailey.
I see both sides of it. I understand like the missing middle, but it is allowed on condition like use by right in the MXN. And if you're trying to keep a small town with a sort of similar use in the core area, then I can see how you might not want to have a triplex or a multifamily house. But I also like the fact that it's not gonna be this lurking huge building over you. It's just gonna, the use is really going to be different.
Yeah, the form will be the same.
I'm comfortable with, oh, I'm sorry, you didn't.
Yeah, I'm
Okay. I'm comfortable with, our previous conversation about not having that.
Okay. So it sounds like yes, not sure, no. Let's see what we've got.
Councilmember
going
Devner?
on.
Yeah, I guess I think it best to not make the triplex and like leave it as is. I think the ADU friendly designation will help the middle housing, which I also understand is more of a state wide concern. But I don't really recall in the community surveys an interest in creating more density from the residents. So I think leaving it as is, I guess, my side.
Councilmember Davis?
Okay.
So Councilmember Davis, that he says he's not in support of triplexes in R1. Is that correct?
Yes.
So it sounds like 3 no's, 1 unsure, 1 yes. Probably not enough there.
Just for the record, I do believe that the comprehensive plan specifically does encourage more density, but maybe for another discussion.
Yeah, I think that's a great point to say, like, this is a living document. You're not going to get everything right on this try. Like, hopefully we get most of it right. We're certainly going to make it a way more functional code where people can actually understand it and figure out the answers to their questions. But policy-wise, this is something that you're going to have to come back to and continue to tweak.
Yeah.
Okay, so enough said on that. I'll move on. So the next one we had is related to hotels in the commercial, or regulating hotels as a permitted use in either the MXN or MXC districts. Council will recall that originally it was drafted to allow hotels, but council, I think by a 1-person majority, decided to remove that permission. So that, again, same question as before, do you want to keep it like it's drafted, no hotels, or do something different as it allow hotels?
Let's start with Councilmember Debner and go back around. I'm going to mix it up a little bit, so nobody's put on the spot every time.
Yeah, thank you.
I'll go. So my perspective is no hotels. The comp plan mentions prioritizing like restaurants and cafes. So no hotels for me.
Councilmember Davis?
I would support that. Keep the interior clean and keep the 44th and Sheridan for development such as that.
So you're saying yes to adding back hotels in?
No, not for the interior part.
No, just for the commercial.
Right.
So yes to hotels in the commercial corridor on MXC.
Yeah.
Okay. So 1 no, 1 yes.
No.
Okay. 2 no's, 1 yes.
I don't support it for the MXN.
Okay.
I'm kind of on the fence for the MXC. Because we have such limited commercial corridor. We do have a lodging tax in place that could be a good source of revenue. I just don't know, the market demand for a hotel.
Why are you looking at me?
Sorry, I have something to say? Pros and cons of hotels and commercial.
I would say, from a financial standpoint, I would be reluctant to deny a hotel because if the development opportunity presents itself, that's a huge tax revenue that the town would be missing out on. So from my perspective, I wouldn't want to limit any type of commercial development because of where we're sitting financially and where the town needs to go in terms of growth and moving towards financial stability.
It is difficult, I'm sorry to interrupt. It is difficult for me to
I'm sorry,
picture.
per our rules, we need to make sure everybody has a chance to speak before somebody speaks second. So if you wanna stay on you're not sure, can we go ahead and hear from Councilmember Lasher and then we'll come back for repetition?
I agree with Charity. I think that we need to open up to everything and get tax revenue coming in so we can keep being a town. So I 100% support.
Yes to hotels and MXC. Sounds like we're split 2-2.
And so, Councilmember, or Mayor Pro Tem?
It is difficult for me to imagine, right?
Mm-hmm.
Based on what we're looking at right now in terms of the corridor,
Mm-hmm.
that there would be a desire for people wanting to stay in a hotel and looking across Lakeside.
Well, it's
That
not always gonna be that.
what I mean, but that is difficult for me to imagine currently.
I would say on the flip side of that, you have a lot of business travelers that come into and out of the city and county of Denver. You're also a couple blocks from a major interstate that takes you to the airport. And in terms of tax base and things like that, it would probably cost them less to stay in Mountain View based off of what our lodging tax is than across the street in Denver. So I would implore you to put that as part of your consideration.
Is this something that we have to decide at the moment, or could we pause on that particular discussion for further thought?
I mean, totally. It's council's call. My goal is that when we get to adoption, which is like next step,
Yeah.
that this is like really final. I don't love doing a bunch of like edits on the fly for this sort of impactful of a document at the adoption stage. If you have to do a couple here and there, that's totally fine. But in my view, my intent is like this hopefully is the night you solve at least the big policy changes.
Yeah. I have a question for Charity. So, have you ever seen, as part of the development agreement, there, like for a hotel, that there's sort of an amenity for residents or any kind of benefit for residents that?
I mean, we could write that right into the
Yeah,
standards
I
in
mean-
the code. Like I have clients that do that. I have clients who limit the number of hotel rooms to try to cater to boutique hotels rather than chains. I have clients who require a certain amount of square footage below to be a restaurant or retail. That's actually how our code was drafted initially, so we can put that back in.
So you can do things to tweak it. So it could be like a hotel, a boutique hotel with a nice restaurant.
Yeah, I mean, so the standard that we had originally was very close to what Morrison had. Like Morrison's got their first boutique hotel, and it has a restaurant below and a coffee shop up top. And it's like a 12-room super boutique hotel, like very, very, what's the word?
Posh.
Yeah.
Well,
And it came in like almost exactly when we did the land use code. Other thing Morrison did was they limited the number. So they said just first in. And so now we have a ton of people like coming to our meeting saying like, please up it, like do 2, do 3, do 4.
Well,
like,
with
we
Red
will build
Rock's
them
right
now.
there, and it makes sense.
Right.
but how close are you to Red Rocks?
We're
Is the
pretty
question.
close still.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, we're still pretty
And
close.
so I would say, from a staff perspective, the more you restrict things through this process, the harder it is to bring development in after the fact. The more lax you are, the easier it is to kind of confine things in a development agreement situation that we would be working on as staff before we approve whatever development they're bringing in.
Does council weigh in on those development agreements?
Well, you could require it as a conditional use, right? And then you would weigh in. So if you really want to see this hotel or this type of use before it's approved, then you approve it. You know, then allow it by right.
And we could limit, again, the number of rooms and, okay.
Yeah, you can do all those things.
Did Morrison do it by a conditional use permit, or was it by right?
It's conditional use. Sounds like Morrison.
I would be in favor of doing a conditional use in a commercial for hotels.
Would you be in favor of that? too?
Yes, I would.
Okay, so actually, I think
What about MXN? So we've got enough support for conditional use for hotels.
did you want to go back to Denver on that one just to
Yeah. Councilmember Debner, are you still feeling a no on that, or are you persuaded by the discussion?
Uh,
Talking about
I'm
the
a, Yeah, I'm a little persuaded by the discussion. I really like the idea of conditional use because that would provide a potential like restaurant opportunity. So I'm okay with conditional and commercial, but the MXN, I view that as maintaining more of the inner town character. So
Okay. So I think we have support for in the commercial, and I've heard not support for MXN from at least 3 council members. I haven't heard MXN from Councilmember Davis and Councilmember Lasher.
You for sure.
Councilmember Davis, are you in favor of allowing hotels or conditionally approved in the MXN or not?
Yes.
Okay, so we have a yes for MXN. Councilmember
Yeah, I
Lasher.
want to approve everything so we can get as many people who want to come here as possible.
Okay, so but we still have 3 no's on MXN.
I mean, I feel like if you're doing a conditional use, you still have a lot of like control and guiding. The only thing I don't love is that it's right next to residential, whereas like an MXC, you have the buffer zone.
Mm-hmm.
That's my only like wavering point. But I mean, at the same time, the council would still make the judgment call and see what that development would actually look like in the end.
Yeah, so one of the criteria is that it has to be compatible with adjacent uses and intensity. So like you can't like just willy-nilly say, I don't think it's compatible. You have to come to the table with some sort of reasoning and evidence that it's not compatible as the decision maker. But you will be able to judge those conditional use permits, at least in part, based off that type of criterion.
Does Morrison have an MXN?
They do.
And they allow also
I don't think
conditional?
it's called that, but yeah.
But do they do a conditional hotels in that?
No.
I didn't think so.
I think about, I'm sorry to interrupt, may I speak? Okay, I think about if I were living right next to the MXN and there was a hotel, how that would impact me as a resident here. So I have to think about how that will impact the neighbors along the MXN.
So I think, do you feel like we've heard from everybody on this? I feel like it's a no on the MXN is what I'm hearing. Is that accurate? Am I hearing that correctly?
Yeah.
And again, you can always
We can always
No,
come
it's
back
too
and
bad.
tweak it if we have somebody that's interested.
definitely. And of course, you could always. Well, yeah, no, you'd have to come back and change things.
The property that the town owns on Benton, is that MXN?
It won't be MXN yet, right? Because MXN is actually not zoned, so it will require a rezoning for MXN to get zoned. But it would be eligible for it, right there.
So
I think right now the zoning map lists it as commercial, correct?
Yeah, so it's MXC
What?
actually.
it's so it's currently commercial.
It's
so
currently
would
commercial.
Yeah, I think
under
it-
this
It's-
draft be allowed for a hotel?
I mean, I looked back at the zoning maps clear to 2020, well, 2001, and it's sitting
That's why
in-
the town bought it, because it is commercial, and if we didn't buy it, then a resident, or someone could buy it and then build a house, and we would have lost that commercial property.
You can't but you can't put a house on a commercial property.
Well, it's
Right.
zoned commercial, and the council could vote to change that.
I thought that was we bought that property because we wanted to change the zoning to make it commercial.
And I thought it was commercial, and
We
we
wanted
didn't
to-
want someone to buy it and put a house on it and lose that commercial property.
We wanted to maintain it commercially because there was a owner who was intending to put residents on it.
But how can you put residential structures on a commercial lot though?
It's part of our historical snarl. That was the issue. That's how we talked about it.
Honestly, can't remember. We
Yeah.
could look into it.
Not
can
sure.
look into it.
At
I
this
would
point,
love-
the most important thing
Yeah,
is
would
we're
you
saying
please?
that particular parcel could have a hotel on it under this current draft. That's what I'm trying to understand. Yes.
Mhm.
Okay.
Hmm.
Next one, maybe, unless there's anything else there. Okay. All right. So, for garage sales, this is a use-specific standard related to that.
I'm sorry, I have to
Okay.
go back, because I'm not okay with that little Benton property having a hotel there. Are we sure it's commercial?
Little Benton property is a
The-
huge property. It's an
I'm
enormous
not
parcel.
comfortable with that Benton property right there. I'm comfortable with the 44th corridor, right? But
It's just the
Would you
zoning.
be able to
It's,
point
okay.
it out? Let's see if this loads.
It's just the zoning. Apparently it's commercial. I thought it was
I
residential.
thought it was
and we were
residential as well. I'm
vying
sorry,
to-
too. I did
It's
think
this
it
one?
was
Yeah.
residential.
Okay, I can share this.
Okay.
So I'll show you your current zoning map, because this is a good exercise too, so we can understand where the zoning is going in practice. So all of this red, or whatever color that is your current commercial district, which will be MXC. All of this yellow is what will become your R1. Again, there won't be any MXN mapped
Right.
until a rezoning application is brought. But this property, per your current code, and this property could be rezoned to MXN.
Where are you pointing?
Sorry, I think I've lost my cursor.
I was
now.
like, I don't see anything.
Thank you.
4375.
Both
That-
of these could be eligible for MXN, but it would take a rezoning.
Right.
Well, I guess on that,
Okay.
if it's zoned commercial already, does that mean that with the new land use code, it will already be part of the MXC?
Correct.
Okay.
So hopefully that helps at least answer the question. Did we want to go back at all to our previous discussion, or are we good to move on?
I'm good with the
Yeah.
commercial. The
Okay.
hotels and commercial.
And actually, can you keep me honest on the time? I can't remember.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so for the garage sale use specific standards, so this is on page 14 of the land use code, 16 of the packet.
So we are right, before we go on to that next one, we're right at, your instinct was right. We're
Okay.
right at what our agenda, per our rules, our agenda requires that we stick to our timeline as much as possible. So I'd like to just propose that per our past discussions about giving enough time for this consolidated workshop, that we suspend that rule, have a motion and a second and a vote to suspend that rule for now and allow this workshop to continue to the end.
So moved.
So moved from Councilmember Bailey, seconded from Mayor Pro Tem. Will the clerk please?
My agenda says that it goes until 8:05.
I had public comment at 7:35. Did I get that wrong?
Maybe.
It's okay.
Okay, so,
Either way.
Mayor Pro Tem Algeen,
Yes.
Councilmember Bailey,
Yes.
Councilmember Davis, Councilmember
We'll
Devner,
take it.
Yes.
Councilmember Lasher.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes. You're correct, Administrator Campfield. I had the time wrong in my little notes here. But moving on,
Cool.
we've got more time.
All right, so we're in garage sales, which is actually a temporary use. So this is a use-specific standard, meaning that this standard has to be met to be able to use this use. And we had a question related to the limitation of 4 days in a calendar year. And I believe, if memory serves me, that the conversation was, do we want to make that higher or potentially just get rid of the limitation on the amount of days you can have a garage sale in town?
Councilmember Bailey?
I don't really care, to be honest.
I'd like to just get rid of it.
Okay.
It seems like a
Mm-hmm.
non-issue.
Yeah,
Okay.
I agree.
Councilmember Devner, do you agree?
Do we have any concerns about like a perpetual garage sale? Because I can see that scenario where someone just has a garage sale all the time and their stuff is out on the driveway.
I think it's different from a garage sale versus a code enforcement violation, right? So a garage sale would have to be posted for a certain amount of time, where if it was just always on the driveway, then that would become part of the nuisance code.
Thank you.
Which speaks to one time during one of our meetings, I mentioned that people did come and get permits for garage sales. That was a right-of-way permit that they were getting. So I looked back at why were people getting permits when we don't have permits required for garage sales. It was for the right-of-way, so if they were, same with this code, if they were impeding the right-of-way, they'd need a permit still.
Right. Yep. Okay, so it sounds like
We haven't heard from Councilmember Davis. Are you in agreement with removing that regarding the garage sale requirements?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, so now we're gonna get to fun stuff. So we're back at the dimensional standards table. I've got a couple in here. So we're gonna go through R1 FAR, R1 height, and then MXN height. Those are the three I have listed here. And then to your point, Councilmember Lasher, per the last meeting, we actually did change this table for MXC. You can see we did go up to that 48 for those areas adjacent to West 44th.
Well, MXC is the commercial.
Right.
Right, so houses on 44th still would not be able to have a basement, because they're in R1, right?
Right,
Is that
so
right?
that's the
Yeah.
discussion right now.
Okay.
So we'll lead off with the R1, which we had R1 and MXN at 24.
Mhm.
I did put over here, so right now this is 34 feet and 2.5 stories, except for multifamily, which you're allowed 3, 4. And so it is a reduction in the current height by about a full story, this standard versus what you have today. Oh, sorry, I'm on page 15 of the Land Use Code, 17 of the packet. So,
I just feel like keeping it at 24 feet is gonna have a lot of like flat roofs and like squatty houses. And I also feel like it's going to affect like everyone's property values. That's like my personal feeling on that.
so your proposal would be go back to how it was proposed at 36, which would be 3 stories?
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, anything over 24.
Councilmember Bailey?
Can we talk about what this looks like in practice, in terms of like what, and also what the potential limitations are with this R1 height?
Potential limitations?
Well, in terms of like you're basically, it's quite a bit. Like you lose out a lot of development potential in your own house and your ability to, like, I mean, can you pop the top with a limit like this?
I mean, if you had a 12-foot home and you wanted to go up to 24, then yeah.
So you can't,
Otherwise, no.
you can't, which means you're limiting every single resident's value of their home, which is likely their largest investment, to be able to grow with their home.
Yep.
I don't know that I feel comfortable with that.
Are you comfortable with what Councilmember Lasher proposed, going back to 36? That's another story, essentially what you have today.
Possibly. I just don't want to limit. I don't want to. I mean, the fact that people move in and you outgrow your house, and rather than someone scrape and rebuild, I'd rather have somebody work with the home that they have and retain their value of their property
Okay.
than be forced to move.
Excuse me. I think that I'm not in agreement with, clearly, I've been clear about that, about the 3 stories, especially if you're the person who's next to that 3-story, right? Or you're sandwiched in between. I do think that 24 is a little low, and I think that if we could raise that up to allow 2 stories, we would then have to determine what that would be. Would it be 28? But 36 is entirely too high, I believe, and that is what the residents who, were in the moratorium and have been present in council meetings for.
So are you talking like 2.5 stories?
Well, I don't know
like
what's
meeting in the middle.
what's 2.5 stories.
Probably like 30 feet, give them at least another 6 feet. And that way, to Councilmember Lasher's point, you could at least get an attic for part of
And
it.
a pitched roof,
And
not
a
a
pitched
flat
roof.
roof.
Yeah.
I just don't think that like anyone could really pick the difference between like if you had 3 houses, like if you talk about field trips, but like if you took everyone to a 30-foot house, a 32-foot house, 34-foot house, a 36-foot house, like it's going to be big. It's not going to be, well, that one's definitely 36. That one, like just seeing it from the outside, I don't believe.
Yeah.
And I know that there's a lot of community members that are like really upset with the 24 proposed that we've been talking about, and they're talking about like the whole takings thing, and so I just really want to like.
The whole takings thing.
I'm sorry.
What does that
I'm
mean?
sorry. I
Oh,
forgot
sorry, I went out
to
of order.
enforce the rule. We haven't heard from Councilmember Debner and Councilmember Davis on this before we hear again from another council member. Councilmember Debner, where are you on the height question for R1?
I guess I think it would make sense to allow for 2.5 stories, so the attic development. Um, I guess I'm really curious, is 36 3 stories, but 34 is 2.5? Is that how it would work? Or does it just kind of depend?
Typically, you've got 12 feet a story. Typically, in modern builds, you could go down to like 10 feet a story for upper levels, but it's more rare.
And so, but that's with a flat roof.
Yeah, right.
So the going up to 30 allows for the pitched roof with 2
Right.
stories.
Great.
Councilmember Davis, where are you on that?
So are we talking about specifically on 44?
No, this is the residential 1 district, so all the homes away from the commercial corridor.
Okay, and so I think 2.5 is good.
So it sounds like we might have unanimous consent to go up to 30 feet. Is that?
If 30 feet is 2.5, I think that's what we're hearing. That's what I have on my notes.
Okay.
Can we see a verbal on that? That everybody's okay with 2.5
No.
feet? Where are you on that?
I think it should go to what it was.
36?
Yeah.
When it originally came?
I mean, we paid that survey and it said the people who filled it out, not just the people who come to every meeting, it unanimously said that it was, or it won saying it was, people liked it how it was, or higher, is what it said on that survey.
So you're gonna go with 36 is where you wanna go.
Isn't that where we're at?
Right now you're at 34.
Okay, 34.
Okay.
34. Are we okay with that, Councilmember Bailey?
With 34,
Mhm.
I don't think between 30 and 34 makes a huge amount of difference. You also, I mean, one thing we haven't talked about is you can put, I mean, I know we've heard some idea that people don't have a stomach for any kind of like design standards, but you could implement design standards that would allow you not to have flat roofs, which would require you to have a pitched roof, which would fit in aesthetically better with the neighborhood. I mean, that is something you could do, where you could go higher, but it wouldn't be, like, wouldn't feel so high, because it's not like a flat roof, and it's just like, I mean, that's another thing you can think about too.
Yeah, I think that brings up a great point. So we talked about those building design standards that do require just that. We decided that they wouldn't be applied in the R1 district. So you're right to say if what you really care about is design in the R1 district, you can regulate that separately. We didn't do that.
Right.
We
I know we
regulated
didn't
just
do that.
MXN and MFC.
Right, but you could do it in R1.
Yeah, and perhaps you just really limit it just to roof pitch and roof design.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to go crazy, but I'm just saying if there was a concern of like it living next to a really big house, then maybe what you could do is you could regulate roof pitch, so you don't.
That's why I want to go higher. Can I speak or someone else?
I was hoping to hear from everybody around the table about 34 feet, because I think that's what Councilmember Lasher is proposing. And I'm hearing Councilmember Bailey say that would be acceptable if we also required a pitched roof. Councilmember Mayor
No,
Pro Tem.
I would accept 30 feet,
Uh-huh.
going from 24 to 30 feet. And I do agree with the survey. However, we had the comprehensive plan, we also had the moratorium, and so that is what I'm hearing. So I would say 30 feet. That's my compromise.
And Councilmember Debner?
Do you, as far as the, so I have the survey pulled up and it mentions that 2.5 stories is 34 feet and 43% of people said that's about right. And then also for context, should pitched roofs be allowed to be a little taller than flat roofs? 71% of people said yes. So I think that the data that I'm looking at would support going a little bit higher. And it does say that the current height is about right. So I think 34 feet is what I'm okay with. and I think 36 if it's like a angled roof. But I'm not sure. I think that would require some rework with our current land use code, if I understand it.
Correct. But we can do that. Let's start with the 34 still around.
Yeah,
I
so,
think-
go ahead.
Did you still have Councilmember Davis, I think?
Councilmember Davis, did we hear from you? I'm sorry. Are you okay with?
I've lost the screen, but I would like to keep it at 36.
Okay.
Okay. So then, sounds like we have 34.
Right. We've got Councilmember Davis at 36 feet. Mayor Pro Tem is at solid.
So we're gonna go back, I'm sorry, I'm very passionate about this. We're gonna go back to those grossly tall houses next to all of those small houses. Is that what we're doing? And that survey was one of 3 involvements within the community. Are we not hearing what other residents are saying other than if you are living next to a tall house, is that what you want to do? Is that what I'm hearing from this council?
I think right now we're just trying to get to understand where everybody is on the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
So let's hear. I just want to summarize what I've heard right now. I hear Mayor Pro Tem, you're at a solid. You don't feel comfortable going higher than 30.
30,
Is that
yes, ma'am.
correct?
Thank you.
And Councilmember Davis, you felt comfortable at 36.
Yes.
Okay. And Councilmember Debner, you felt comfortable at 34.
Yeah. Yep.
And Councilmember Bailey, you felt comfortable at 34 the
Yeah.
last time we spoke?
Yeah.
And Councilmember Lasher, you felt strongly 36, or do you feel comfortable at 34?
I mean, I would prefer 36 with like the pitched roofs, but I will compromise at 34.
So we've
So
got,
maybe we can ask that question next to give another 2 feet for pitched roof.
yeah, because we've got 3 saying yes to 34, 1 saying no more than 30, and 36 being in the mix as well.
So it sounds like 34 is what I'm hearing.
34 sounds like the majority, and we could maybe go higher with a pitched roof. Councilmember Bailey?
So I think that the part of the consternation is like we still don't really seem to have a real answer as to whether or not what's on the ground was actually built with a code, and if it matched, if site plans match, if there was a verification between what's on the ground versus like whether it matched the site plan and all those other things. Because I remember this issue hasn't been settled, and so like and also we didn't, like, did we really have people actually reviewing things on the ground? And I feel like we added things to the code in an emergency fashion because we realized that there was kind of a gap, and we plugged some gaps with some emergency ordinances back at the time around the moratorium happened. So I feel like we might get further along with the things if we had a better understanding of what's out there and what's on the ground.
So is the ask to have staff go through every new rebuild since the 2019 residential code update and do kind of like a site plan check to make sure that they fall within that 2019 code?
I mean,
I thought Travis might have done that.
No. So I brought this up in
Okay.
another meeting, and I'm like a squeaky wheel, and that I don't get any oil, and I keep bringing up the same point over and over again, and we keep having the same conversation round and round, but I don't get actually answers. Travis said he didn't say that he didn't do a paper to on the ground comparison. There was none of that done, and I remember distinctly there being a discussion of where Safeville thought we were doing something that Safeville thought we thought Safeville was doing something that we thought Safeville was doing, and so you're going like this, and I don't know if things actually happened.
So in order to put this to bed, we'll have to do an aerial view of all the new builds, which I already have a list. I've already pulled the address files of all of them to see who pulled variances versus what was in the 2019 code. So we'll have to look at Google Earth and actually apply that to the site plan and the 2019 building standards to put this to bed.
I wouldn't think it'd be that hard because Safeville does so many inspections, and so they have those. I mean, I can pull up my inspections to see that I passed every one, and then you don't get your CO unless you pass every inspection. So I wouldn't think it would be like a super lot of work. I mean, I know it's going to be a lot of work for you,
Sometimes,
but it
but
should be easy to.
I will say, sometimes planning and building don't always align. So I understand the need to want the follow through.
Oh yeah, I think it'd be great to put the issue to bed.
I
Like
would
I
love
think
to.
that transparency would be perfect for everything. But I'm just saying I wouldn't think that it would be like super. I mean, I know it's gonna be a lot of work, but I think it would be very worth your time.
And you also mentioned variances, which is another question I had. How many of the ones that are seemingly built in, near times received variances? Were they administratively approved? Did they go to the BOAA? Are there does anything affect those houses that are on the ground right now that residents are reacting to? Did they receive any kind of variance, or were they built within the code?
So
Because that's a huge part of this puzzle.
let
I feel
me
like.
do the report first, because
Okay.
I don't want to speak out of turn. I understand that this is a delicate issue, so I would rather have all the facts in front of me before I comment on everything in a public meeting, just
Yeah.
for, I guess, due diligence sake. But I can spend the next 2 weeks trying to get all of this information together to put in my staff report for the next meeting.
And to be clear, you're bringing it up at the last meeting, Councilmember Bailey. This has already been in the works. She's already working toward that. We've already talked about it. So it just has to be on the agenda for it to be reported on. So when you bring it to us, we have to notice it that it's gonna be talked about. So it's not as if your request for that information has not been responded to. It's been planned to be addressed.
And maybe it would make more sense to put it as part of the agenda item for the first hearing of the land use code.
What's directly related? I mean, it's really hard
Up to you guys.
Yeah.
Okay.
for residents to understand. Some people that are objecting to certain things might not understand that, well, actually, these houses may or may not have been given a variance of some sort, and that's why it looks different than what you would think, or maybe there was a ball draft. I mean, I don't want to
And I
open
will
up the town
say,
to the issues, but I just feel like we need to put it to bed.
and I will say this happens all the time where municipalities update codes and regulations, and then once they see it in practice, they're like, that's not what we intended,
Yeah.
let's scale it back.
Totally.
Yep.
And so this is not completely uncommon,
Right.
and I think it's hard to visualize it when you're just passing new regulations
Right.
for residential buildings versus seeing it in action.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and also one of the things we've done is we've given lot coverage credits to garages that face the alley. You can just require that they face the alley and not give any additional lot coverage. I mean,
Right.
it's simple as that. If you want to incentivize that, you don't necessarily need to give up lot coverage to it.
And I definitely think we made a lot of those simplification and policy changes here. The one thing I will note as well, related to roof pitches, we actually already have this language in here. So we have it exempt from the floor area ratio to incentivize it there. And we have a height exception for pitched roofs as well to incentivize it there. So those two requirements, or two exceptions, incentivize those pitched roofs, but again, you still don't go so far as to require them in R1. You do require roofline variation in MXN and MXC.
So currently, the exemption for pitched roofs is at 5 additional feet.
Right.
And if we land on 34 feet, do we want to reduce that exemption to allow for 2 more additional feet instead of 5 more additional feet for the pitched roof? Because the highest we went was 36 feet
So then we're
in this
gonna be back to
conversation.
where we were, right? We're
Right.
gonna be exactly where we
So
are.
that's why I'm saying
Absolutely.
reduce it instead of
I oppose
increase it.
that. I oppose that.
Do you understand that I'm saying reduce the number of feet? It's already in there that we have the pitched roofs may exceed the maximum building height by up to 5 feet. So if we're at 34 feet,
We're going higher
we wanna,
than 36.
we
We're
wanna
gonna be
reduce
higher
that
than
from
36.
5 feet to 2 feet,
I think
correct?
that's a good idea.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're still gonna be at 36 feet.
That's what the majority of council at this
Yes,
point
I
has said.
understand. Okay.
Yeah, so with a pitched roof, it will match your requirement that you have today for height in R1.
Okay,
Okay. So relatedly, height in MXN was dropped from 36 to 24. Same question.
right.
And again, ideally, it would look I will tell you, no one will zone into this district unless they're required to by the council if the height is lower than R1.
Right.
And so,
Right.
honestly, if you don't raise the height to a little bit higher than R1, this district kind of becomes obsolete. Because the idea is that it's transitioning the intensity.
So, Councilmember Lasher, what would you propose for MXN?
I would be open to discussion, or like to your, thing, so we're
What's your
saying, I mean, I would say go up just a little bit, so then it's kinda like that stair
Yeah.
step up, so then it's not as, you know, like big of a change for the residents.
Yeah, I agree. I think the original proposal at 36 would be a little bit of a step.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Okay.
Councilmember Debner has his hand up, so we're gonna go to him next.
When it comes to the zoning reapplications for MXN, how are those processed? Those come to council, but do we have any restrictions as far as can someone in the middle of town submit a zoning application to change it to MXN? Because
No,
that
'cause
seems contrary.
Yeah, it wouldn't meet the criteria of a rezoning for MXN, which is required as a transition between R1 and MXC along those buffered areas. So it would have to be adjacent to both of those districts to be able to be considered for that rezoning. So if you had an MXN application for rezoning in the middle of town surrounded by R1, it wouldn't meet the criteria for approval. But council would be the adjudicator of that decision.
So, Councilmember Debner, given that information, do you support going to 36 for a height for MXN?
36 was in the original draft, correct?
That's
Yeah.
correct.
I support 36.
Thank you. Councilmember Davis, do you support 36 for the MXN district?
Yes.
And Mayor Pro Tem?
Well, I mean, it has to be the same, right? I can't, okay. I have to go with what the majority of the board is wanting. But on the record, I'm opposing that. Okay?
What would you go to for the record?
Well, we'd have to match it, right?
Okay.
So,
Thank you. Councilmember Bailey?
Yes.
36. We have unanimous support for 36 for MXN.
Great. Thank you guys. All right, so we've got one last one here, and that's related to the floor area ratio for R1. And so, again, as we talked about before, floor area ratio is really what's doing the major work and the difference between your current code and the new code and regulating the mass of structures. So it's regulating the actual visible square feet of structures. That's what this standard's doing. And right now, this matches your historic standards as far as lot area. So your historic lots of record are 3125. Although many lots in the town are on double lots, so it's on double that. It's on 6250. So the quick math on floor area ratio, so you just basically divide it by half and add a little bit. So 3125, max floor area ratio is about a 1,600 square foot home. If you double that, you get about 3,200 square foot home on a double lot. And that's visible square feet. You can't hide the square feet if it's, geologically permissible.
So I'll ask this question for context for the board. Having that calculation in there will kind of limit how large the footprint of the home is.
Yes.
So it can be really tall, but it's not going to go right up to the lot line and encroach on their neighbors.
Right. It regulates the total floor area to which you can build on a lot. And so it's doing the major work on regulating the visual mass of a building so that it doesn't have complete coverage. That and the standard just above it related to impervious surface area, which is the amount of buildable area as you look aerial on the lot. That's the way I think about it. So you can't cover more than 55% of the whole lot. So those two standards together are working together to reduce the building mass more than anything else as it visually appears. Again, you can hide it. You can go below.
So what was
The question is, do you want to keep it as is? I can't again remember the narrative or history why this got on Consolidated. I
Has
can't
it
remember if it's
been-
higher or lower.
was the original draft what we're seeing
Correct.
now?
We didn't touch it in the original
Okay,
draft.
But somebody wanted to have this come back for discussion
I
at some point.
think so. Okay.
Councilmember Bailey?
So with the floor area ratio of like you said, for a standard lot, a normal lot, not a double lot, it's 3125, which means that you only have 1,600 square feet That's like
Above grade.
Both stories, like 2 stories. 600 feet up. Yeah.
Yep.
Would you like to see that increase?
So that is definitely doing the primary work as far as massing regulation. And you don't have that today. Right now you have a ton of complicated standards around lot coverage. We got rid of all those and instead replaced it with this.
Including one of the things that you took issue with about having incentives, right?
Yeah.
So, in a way, correct me if I'm wrong, I see going to this kind of system as being responsive to the residents who have been like, these houses are too bad.
Yeah, that was the idea, is that when you're on the sidewalk and you look at the home, the massing will be smaller because of this standard is keeping it smaller, at least again above grade.
So is there any objection to leaving it where it is? Maybe that's the way to ask the question,
Yeah.
most helpful.
That's
Okay.
I mean, I just wonder if 1,600 feet is enough above grade square footage. That's my only concern.
What would you like to propose?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know. That's the thing. It's like 1,600 square feet
Per
is
story?
huge. No, not per
Oh.
story.
Okay.
For 2 stories, that's 800 square feet on the bottom and 800 square feet on the top, which seems really, really tiny considering my house is super tiny and it's about 1050. So that seems like a way too small to me.
And you do have exceptions related to, again, if you bury it below grade, but I
If you have the
understand that's
ability to
not
do
going to
that.
be possible
Right.
in a portion of the town. And the other exception we have here is basically a bonus for ADUs. You get like a free 400 square feet for ADUs. That doesn't count towards your FAR.
And ADUs can be attached as well.
Right.
So I hear
Okay.
a little bit of concern from Councilmember Bailey. Is there concern from anybody else on the board? Councilmember Lasher,
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that that's,
you'd like to increase that?
yeah, absolutely.
Do you have any number you'd like to propose? Just more
I
is better.
mean, can you give some advice on what that would be?
Yeah, so this matches essentially your historic development pattern right now. So it matches like a smaller historic bungalow. And so modern homes are typically like close to twice that square footage. And so if you wanted to be in the middle between a historic bungalow and a more modern build, you'd probably up this by at least 10%, maybe 15%.
What does that, can you give me the?
Yeah,
10,
so if
15
you
would
went
be?
to a max floor area of like 0.65, let me get my calculator so I'm not
Yeah.
making numbers out.
It's like that's,
So 3125 times 0.65. So you get just over 2,000 square feet above grade. So you get another 400 square feet. Again, those are only on those historic lots. So you double that for a double lot. So if you're on a double lot, you get 4,000 square feet, which
But
then
most-
seems like.
Are most homes on a single lot?
Most homes are on a double lot.
I think most are
Most
actually
are
on a double,
double?
yeah. Yeah, I can bring it up, but I don't want
I
like,
actually don't even idea what one.
I don't know if
mine
this will be
is.
helpful or harmful, but I can show you generally. Right. So like this, it's hard to tell based off your zoning map, but these all look like double lots.
Oh, those are all double lots.
This is definitely
That's-
a single here.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay, so the majority are
Yeah.
double lots.
There-
So when you say a double lot, we would be looking at a 3,600 square foot
Yeah.
If you upped it.
If you upped it,
if
yeah.
we upped it.
so does that help then, Councilmember Bailey, if you're doubling that number for most of the properties that are on double lots?
Yeah, so you'd be looking at about a 3,000-ish square foot home, a little more.
Oh, that seems much better than 1,600. Which I thought
And again,
was
this-
going to be enough
this
for
all
like a
kind of
what,
work-
800 square feet on the bottom and 800 square feet
Right.
top.
So-
That is small.
So again, this was all sort of intentionally worked together. The reason that we have all those exemptions for subdivisions is that I want all of your lots of record to be actually conforming lots. So I want all those properties to come in who are on a double lot, but but they actually have a lot line right between them right now when you look up the actual real property records, to come in, make it easy for them. We're going to do administrative approval. We're going to get rid of that lot line right in between, and what we call now a double lot will just be a lot of 6,250 square feet.
And then what are we gonna call the single lots?
So it'd still be a lot,
Okay,
and it's just depending on the size. Like,
Okay.
I will say it's not typical, unless you're in like a mining town, to have like double lots.
Okay.
Because most places, especially that have urbanized, fixed it at some point.
Okay.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Could you give me like a mental image, like for example, 4144 Depew. 2 houses. I'd like to know what the square footage of that house is.
Oh, I have.
And so,
Yeah.
what would that be? Okay,
I don't
thank you.
I don't feel
Yeah,
super comfortable
that's-
giving
yeah.
those like particular examples.
I just need a visual. If we're talking
Uh-huh.
about 3,600 feet and we're talking about 36 feet high,
Uh-huh.
I'm imagining the house on Chase, the house 2 houses down from me, the one on Fenton. Those are the houses that I'm imagining, right? Or the one also on Chase over here, on 41st Chase. Those are the houses I'm imaging,
Go ahead,
imagining.
please.
Yeah, maybe we can provide some like examples from other communities of what the square footage might look like.
That would be helpful.
It's going to be really different based off the design, right? You can have a really narrow house that looks small but goes back a long ways. You see a lot of those in historic towns because most lots were short width and long. But we can certainly provide some examples of just visually what it looks like.
That are
Square
not
footage. That-
choosing the houses in our community.
Right.
Okay,
But
fair
for
enough.
now, given that the way that it was drafted included 2 what we call lots, and that number is doubled, are you more comfortable with that, and we can move on with
Yeah,
the way
no,
it's
I
drafted?
just, I didn't, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of jarring.
It's very confusing.
Yeah, it's kind of jarring because that 3125 is kind of a misnomer because most of your lots lots, it's actually a parcel in practice, are made up of 2 lots, 2 legal lots. That, in many cases, a structure was built right on top of the lot line.
Yes,
Which,
that
as you
would be
can
my
imagine,
house.
makes it difficult to enforce your dimensional standards.
I
But
think
that's
that's
part
actually
of what
part of the
we're.
reason why we did that in 2019 was to make it so that a lot of houses wouldn't be caught in non-conformance.
Unfortunately, you didn't fix the nonconformity at that point.
Didn't have a professional administrator.
But you have the ability to now. Again, you're not forcing it yet. Maybe some later council says like, we're gonna do it for all of you. We're gonna re-subdivide this town and get rid of all these lots of record. That's an option. It costs you some money. But for now, you've just provided a really streamlined, incentivized way for property owners to come in and sort of correct their double lot issue.
What do you mean you spend money and get rid of lots of record? What does that mean exactly?
Yeah, so it would be the town actually bringing the application, which is exceedingly rare. So you'd be hiring your own planner and surveyor and saying, hey, like we're bringing this application legislatively rather than quasi-judicially. And that means that you're bringing an application for like a town-wide application rather than site-specific, which is what you see 99.99% of the time when one property owner requests something. When the town has the ability to legislatively implement an application, it's incredibly rare and typically not very.
Does that mean you'd be
There's typically some pushback.
Does that mean you would be like redrawing property lines in the town? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, so basically you'd be
boy.
creating a.
Standard lot, basically.
Yeah.
I mean, it definitely would. I can see people getting really up in arms about that, but it would definitely
Yeah, and
eliminate
again,
a lot
that's
of
certainly not this
problems.
process at all. That's not what we're doing in this process.
Right.
But you have the option to. In looking at your code right now, I see maybe 3 or 4 still lots of record.
Okay.
It's very few.
Okay.
There's a
That's good.
hand on our recording that's in the middle of our table. There we go, just for the recording.
Oh, did I stop? Okay, so I guess it seems like no objections there, and I'll continue to move along.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, definitely. All right, so we're really close. Thank you guys for hanging in there. All right, so the next question I had was related to this exception we created for alleyway connections. And so if you remember my little drawing that I did initially, and I can bring it back up, where essentially on West 44th Avenue, we allow for a vacation to be created. That way that development could be unified without an alleyway going through it. So you can vacate the piece of the alley going through dumping onto West 44th and instead replace it with a new alleyway that connects onto a local arterial. I'll show an example because I see very
Yeah, I was
confused
like, I don't
faces.
know.
I vaguely remember the
Okay.
drawing. Can you also point us to where that is in the code too?
Yes, absolutely. So it's on page 19 under vehicle circulation, 21 of the packet. Alright, here's my very impressive artistry.
Oh yes.
Okay.
I forgot.
So here, the black is your, typical alleyway, right? And right now, it would continue to dump onto West 44th, this collector, right? So you can have someone dumping right out and having to accelerate right into this arterial. Maybe that's what you want. That's what you have now. What this standard allows for is for this red portion to be vacated. What that means is the town says, we're going to release it back into private property. So this whole parcel could be developed in unison without that alleyway bisecting it. But instead, they would have to create a new alleyway that dumps out on the other side of the property. That's that blue. That'd be the new alleyway. So that's an exception to the rule. Does that make more sense now?
Yep.
Mhm.
Okay, cool.
Love that.
So the question is, do we want to keep that? And I'm hearing Councilmember Lasher say you do want to keep that.
Keep his drawing. No,
Yeah.
keep how it is. Yeah.
Keep that vacation.
Right. Okay. Keep the language
The
as
exception.
is.
Yeah.
And she loves the drawing I'm hearing.
Yeah, I do. I've tried to accelerate out of there and it is so scary.
Mayor
So,
Pro Tem, you have
so
your
if you're
hand up?
going down Ames, we're gonna make a new alley. So currently, there are no residential property that would be impacted by the changing of the alley. Is that correct?
Yeah, right.
Okay.
The alleyway right now would be on MXC on both sides.
Okay. Okay.
But there could be residential uses in the MXC district in the future as multifamily above
Right.
Retail.
Councilmember Debner?
And so my understanding is if we vacation that alleyway spill out, that means the town would be giving up the right to that alley or
Yeah.
ownership
So
of it,
Yeah,
as long as there's a way to get out.
you'd be giving up the ownership, but in turn, you'll see the last sentence there, you are requiring a new alleyway to be dedicated to you. So you're basically saying, we'll give you this so you can unify your development, and you give us a new one just onto this local street rather than an arterial.
And is this
Okay.
just Ames or is this all of the
It's all of
north,
those,
south streets?
all of those properties are right on West 44th.
Okay.
All of them on West 44th. So we're talking about any residential house will be impacted by a new alley and traffic along Ames to Fenton.
So
Can you bring your drawing back?
yeah, let me actually bring up the zoning code so I can show you. Or the map, sorry. Alright, so what I just showed you was this alleyway here. Can you see my cursor? Right, so basically you'd be taking out this last portion right here, and you'd be putting a new one in right here. Okay, so you'd be doing that same process throughout. So you'd be taking out this, and you'd be putting one on this property, on the red property, and it would be dumping out here. So here it would be right here, dumping or taking out this, dumping it on this side. Here,
Yeah.
get that exercise.
So one thing, it would help with people speeding down those alleys, right? Because they're not gonna go down the alley to dump into 44th anymore.
Really, the idea is that you probably wouldn't get those alleyways used unless it's for a business actually within that building. So you'll see this in a lot of like newer developments, like in Denver, that wanted a unified full block without an alleyway bisecting it, and they did. They cut out the alleyways and portions of them, and then basically now the alleyway will turn. At that turn, you'll see like a parking garage entrance, and if you continue going, you'll get to that local street. And
So that would be on the side, like on the north side of every house from Ames to Fenton. If we change the alley, those houses would be impacted by increased traffic through alleys, dumpsters, the trash, the recycling, all of that noise. We're going to affect all of those residents that are all along those lines, right? Not just one street, not Ames, but the whole entire town.
as drafted, it would be all of those adjacent alleyways on dumping into West 44th. You could certainly limit it more. I would note that you have buffering standards. So whenever use is adjacent to, or any use in the MXC district that's adjacent to any residential use has to buffer along the property line.
And what do you envision? What is a buffer?
Yeah, I'm not sharing anymore. I'll bring it up, and I'll try to keep doing this so hopefully you all get familiar with the code and how to answer these questions. So,
Because, I'm going to say this again. All of us at the table, we're in the zone. We're in the buffer zone. We're not affected by 44th, right? We live in the quiet part of town. So when we make these rules or changes, we are impacting all of the residents along that 44th corridor.
great.
To improve the commercial development.
I understand to improve, absolutely, and I'm for development, but it's a balance,
Correct.
right?
Totally.
It's also hard to envision what it looks like on the ground because wouldn't it take removal of buildings and such to create this new alleyway and
Yeah,
it would look drastically
completely different. The only time you'd really see it is if you got a unified developer came in that bought up multiple, maybe all of those parcels and said, I have this plan where I'm going to develop your entire commercial corridor. And it sounds rare, but like, look at Denver.
Mm-hmm.
It happened quite frequently. And I think it's important to have tools in place to try to mitigate these impacts as much as possible, like this one. So you'll see, I'm in your screening section right now. That's where I jump to find the buffering requirements.
Okay.
And you can see that a solid fence or wall or a combination of berms, fences, and walls shall be provided along all uses in the MXC district adjacent to any residential use in R1 and MXM. So that's something you don't have today. Right now you have, like you're saying, parking lots, access ways, garbage cans, all these things right next to a residential structure. This is a big change. It allows for an actual visible transition that hopefully mitigates the noise and activity on the higher intensity commercial use better than it does today. You don't have the standard today.
Okay.
So it's something. But let's go back to the original question and see if there's any.
What about sewers in the alley? How is that impacted?
Yeah, like if you had to redo the sewer line. So I'm telling you
Yeah.
right now, if you're doing a unified development, you're redoing all those sewer lines for sure. You're redoing all those sewer, all those water lines for sure. If you're building,
But if we're not, if someone doesn't want to take over, then what happens with those sewer lines?
so right now, improvements are only made as new development comes in. Otherwise, the town is required to maintain them.
Councilmember Bailey?
Are there other things that you think we could do that are more protective if there's a concern over this creation of a new alleyway?
Yeah, I mean, I would point out some of the things that we have already done, like requiring additional setback even in some of those areas. And so I think you could go even higher there. You could require, even in addition to like a wall, fence, or berm, you could require additional landscaping, but I would question whether you would need it if you have like a wall, fence, or berm. Those are the main things I'm seeing in practice is either you like force a step back, which we do, or you have a physical barrier, which we require.
Yeah.
And really the question is like more or less on those scales, I think.
So we need the answer to the question, does council want to keep the exception for alleyway vacations on West 44th Avenue? Can we start, Councilmember Debner, I see a thumbs up. Councilmember Davis, do you want to keep that? Okay, I see a yes from Councilmember Davis.
Yes.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem?
No.
So no,
Yes.
yes.
Oh, yes.
So we've
Okay.
got majority council by 4-1, keeping that.
All right, I am almost through. Okay, so the next one, thank you for mentioning this. So right now, and you're gonna have to fill me on the history because I can't remember. I did have this on my consolidated list, but we don't require any parking right now. I'm guessing it was on consolidated because it was a split vote or something for
Oh.
ADUs. And so the question is, do you want to keep that? It is a requirement to be DOLA ADU certified that we can't require another parking space.
That you can't?
Cannot.
So that's how it's currently drafted,
Correct.
is in compliance with
So
the
right now
DOLA.
we're good.
Okay.
If we change it, we will have to go back to DOLA.
But it was,
We will
I do
probably
recall
get the
that
thumbs down.
discussion at the table, if there was it was a split vote,
Okay.
and it was undecided at that point, so we were gonna come back to it. So for now, the question to council is, does council wanna keep the no minimum parking requirement for ADUs and maintain what we anticipate will be our ADU-friendly jurisdiction designation?
I want to support DOLA. However, let's say we have, I don't know, I'm going to say 7 new ADUs on the street in which I live. And then parking becomes an issue. When do we address that? Right? How do we address that? Because everyone who lives in an ADU probably has 2 cars. Not 1, but 2. If you live with a lover, a partner, a wife, a husband, a roommate, you're gonna have 2. So we're looking at doubling the parking on the streets, right? For those who don't have driveways, right?
So, are you saying that you want to go back to requiring a parking lot, or are you
No, I'm saying I want to support DOLA, but my question is if we see there's an issue with parking in the future, how do we address that?
You can certainly come back to these standards, require more parking for any of these uses, including ADUs. Of course, at that time, you would lose the designation with DOLA, provided we get it. But I would assume you wouldn't have to like repay any grant funds or anything. I mean, I don't know if we necessarily want to look into that right now either.
Didn't we briefly discuss permit parking?
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
gonna throw that to the administrator. I think that that's something that we had talked about, that there are ways to address parking outside of these.
Oh yeah.
I think at some point you have to see the development play out and the impacts of it before you can start wanting to propose those regulations. It's kind of like the whole 2019 building code standards, right? Until you actually see it in practice, you don't know how to respond to the impacts of the development.
Councilmember Bailey?
You can limit the number of ADUs by policy, also.
I mean,
Yeah,
You can
no,
put a
I
cap
think-
on ADUs.
I
right?
think in practice, if this were to like happen, you're seeing like a bunch of ADUs being built, maybe the infrastructure isn't ready for it, and that you have overparking or something like that. Then at that point, you could pass a moratorium and say, hey, we're gonna not allow any more ADUs right now. We're gonna study the issue and find ways to mitigate it and potentially pass new standards. So in practice, you have those tools available to you. Or you could just say like, hey, we're gonna require more parking for ADUs, and we don't care that we're losing our designation with DOLA.
and I think maybe the best course of action would be like a 12-month look back after the land use code is updated to see exactly how many ADU units have been brought in, what the traffic impacts are, even all the new development. We could definitely address that in 12 months to see what happens and what brings the development in and how we would have to adjust afterwards.
Yeah, and I think you will definitely be hearing from developers. I think I let all you guys know that, the last code I did right before this was Morrison, and they had a built-in 1-year look back, and you best believe the developers came flooding in, and they said a bunch of things, but the main thing they said was like, it's too expensive. Like the design is too high. Like these buildings are too much per square footage. Can you work with us? And they are. And so I imagine a similar process here. If first of all, developers will always tell you it's too expensive.
Well, yeah.
But you can certainly, build in that look back and have, you know, a bunch of developers or property owners come forward and say, hey, I thought I could do this with my property, now I can't. Can you guys look into this? But I do think it takes some time to kind of get it off the ground and then realize what the new tension points are.
If we get that DOLA, what were you calling it?
Designation.
And then we put a moratorium on it, what would happen there?
I mean, they won't be happy about
Yeah,
that.
okay, but like,
Yeah.
but
I
we
mean,
could, is like what I'm saying.
I will say I think this is like basically kind of the minimum DOLA was looking for to get the
Okay.
designation.
Yeah,
Okay.
makes sense.
Okay.
Um,
So,
What-
just to,
I have a question.
I want to make sure that everybody else has a chance to speak, just keeping to our rules. We haven't heard from Councilmember Davis on the issue of ADU parking, keeping the no minimum. Are you okay on that?
Well, I think everybody needs to have a parking space. So, yeah.
You would like to change that?
So we have a minimum, right?
No.
Right now, there is no minimum in the interest of maintaining our ADU-friendly jurisdiction designation from DOLA. And then the proposal, I'm sorry?
I think we have to have a minimum, at least one parking space per person who's living there.
Okay, so I hear Councilmember Davis say that he would like to change that. I've heard Councilmember Devner say he's okay keeping it the way it is. And I haven't heard a strong support either way from the three at the table. Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes, I want to support the DOLA.
Okay, so we've got
Grant.
2 in support of maintaining it,
Keeping it.
3 in support of maintaining it, 4 in support.
Okay.
So we've got majority support for maintaining the no minimum parking.
Great.
Mayor, I would like to keep DOLA as well.
Okay,
You can't,
thank you. And then Councilmember Devner, now it's your turn, please.
I guess I was just wondering, as far as the history of this designation and future grant availability, I wonder if staff have any ideas of what that looks like.
Well, I mean, it's hard to project what future grant opportunities are gonna come from that. I think right now, we are in the application cycle for the ADU friendly jurisdiction grant to help build ADUs within the community. Whether we get the grant this cycle or not, I mean, we have a better chance with the land use code being updated per DOLA's regulations. But I can't tell you what future grant opportunities are gonna come down the pipeline because that is so dependent on a wide range of variables.
What, do you know when the program like first launched? Is it like a recent designation, or has
No,
this been
so-
going on for?
I attended a workshop that DOLA put on about this grant a year ago, right after I started. But the caveat is you have to be an ADU certified jurisdiction to get the ADU grant. And so it was kind of just one of those lucky draws that we were doing this project and we could align for both grants at the same time. So the next grant cycle, the application deadline is August 15th. So we have to take the draft and turn around a grant very quickly.
Do the community, do the property owners apply for the money, or does the town, the ADU?
I don't have those facts in front of me because I haven't applied for the grant yet.
I think it's the property owners.
I think it's the property owners, but they're not able to even apply for it until we become an ADU certified jurisdiction.
We get that designation.
and we've had residents express, multiple residents express interest.
Mhm.
Yeah,
To the
I think
council.
it shows support for the residents in moving in this direction. I think it's a really positive step for our community. And for affordable housing, which I think we all care about.
That's all I had. Thank you. I know that was a big process.
It's a wonderful presentation, and it's
Thank you.
really helpful to see at the beginning the complexity and, you know, then just going through all those questions. I think it's a really, really helpful for the whole table.
Oh, thank you.
Councilmember
I
Lasher.
just want to say it was so much work for you, and I appreciate how you put it together and you explained everything so well, and I think it's really gonna set our town up for future like greatness. So I just want to say thank you
Thank
for
you.
Everyone, Charity, Emily, Austin, the council's hard work on it. I think everyone did great. I know it's not done yet, but I'm just saying like
Right.
it feels like a good point to be.
It's a big milestone.
Yeah.
Councilmember Bailey.
So like, I had a couple things. I was like reading more closely, and
Great.
because this was the first consolidated draft, and I had some questions about like mostly about the legal nonconformities.
Uh-huh.
I think it's really
Can you set picture on?
I'm not on it. I'm just on my
Oh.
notes.
Yeah, I can bring him up.
I didn't know the pages.
No, that's
sorry.
fine.
Yeah, it's gonna be page 51. The land use code 53 of the packet. And I can share our screen again. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so I'm going to go there too. So I have the actual code in front of me. Do we have a sense at all with these changes, how many, if any, legal nonconformities that we're creating? Because
Yeah.
I feel like it's something you need to really have an idea of, because that's going to create a real issue for our residents. If we're
Yeah.
creating a ton of legal nonconformities, that's not a good move for our town.
Yeah.
And so like I had that question, and also I feel like there could be some better protections possibly in here for the nonconformities, not just like the physical structure, but the actual the lawful use. And also like it seems like the 18-month timeline for like for something like, you know, if your house burns down, you only have 18 months to basically rebuild it. Otherwise, you forfeit that legal nonconformity. And I can just imagine you being. I mean, think of what happened in like Superior, you know, where you like multiple homes get wiped out, and like and people are, you know, are underinsured, and like there's like
Right.
legal snafus, and like we all know the courts don't move very quickly, and so 18 months just seems like not a lot of time to get all that sorted before you would be able to rebuild your house in the exact same footprint or
Yeah.
what have you. And so like also like the language is kind of ambiguous, like completed or diligently pursued. Kind of can you qualify that more?
Yeah.
And also, I also take issue a little bit with the fact that the owner themselves bears the burden of proving the legal nonconforming status. That seems like it might be a bit of a tall order as well. I don't know what other municipalities do. I think Golden does it differently. I think I looked at Denver as well. Yeah, I just want to make sure we're not, you know, that people can use their homes for what they were previously if an accident happens. We're not penalizing them for an act of God, so to speak.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll try to handle all those, but I'll probably miss some, so remind me if I miss any. Generally, throughout this entire process, when you were creating a nonconformity, I flagged it for you. And you
Okay.
did create several. You
Yeah.
mostly created them in your uses in your commercial district, which is now currently in your code, auto-oriented uses. And in this new code, those uses are either extremely limited or just straight out prohibited. Meaning,
Right.
those types of uses are going to be legal nonconforming if this is passed today. The other big one that you initially created but you undid today was the height in your residential district. You would have created quite a lot of legal nonconformities if you did reduce the height to 24 feet, which again was reversed today to what it is today, so you won't have those legal nonconformities anymore. Those are the primary nonconformities that we would have created through this process. When you're talking about like, will my home be nonconforming? If you look at the design standards, it specifically says like this does not apply and you shall not be considered a nonconformity if you don't meet the design standards. So we're really only talking about new structures for design. Otherwise, there will be very, very limited instances of nonconformities for what you have on the ground today. And the reason for that is that council in most places decided to be a little bit more generous than the code currently allows today. The one area where you may see some nonconformities is max FAR, because that's a new standard you have today. So if you have a very, very large home right now, it's possible that the square footage is over the max FAR. But again, that nonconformity in practice will only prevent them from building more square footage. That's the extent to which that nonconformity will play out in practice. their home that's already over the FAR won't be able to exceed it further.
Right, okay.
And you can still use and maintain like you would today. Let me think some of your, so there are different provisions for non-conforming uses, they're here. I can't remember exactly what your question was there, but we break it out for those general nonconformities, and then we have particular subsets depending on what type of nonconformity it is. As far as the requirement to rebuild, we definitely did deal with that in Superior, and I'll tell you what we did in Superior was we did a full suspension of the nonconformities altogether, and we let people rebuild to exactly what they had in practice, including exempting them from the entire building code as amended and letting them build to their original building code, even if it was like a 1940 structure.
Oh, wow.
We exempted them from almost everything.
Okay.
And so that would be,
Is that safe for electrical?
obviously, hopefully that never happens. And it was a huge policy concern because
Yeah.
folks said like, well, no, if they build to our standards today, this won't happen again to some degree. We'll have separation requirements. The buildings will be built of higher grade materials. We won't have fences made up of flammable materials that are, literally combustible. And ultimately, the council said we care more about cost.
Yeah, that's great.
So that's what happened in Superior. Every community is different. Hopefully, obviously, we never get into a circumstance like that. But those kind of really exceptional scenarios, you just can't plan for perfectly.
Right.
So I would plan for what you see as the typical. What you see for typically dealing with illegal nonconformities is someone who just fails to maintain continuously. It eventually becomes derelict, and the building's potentially non-habitable, and your building code is enforcing against it. And when you get to that point, you say, oh, and by the way, you're non-conformity. So if you don't rebuild the entire thing in conformance with the approved plans, then we're going to make you rebuild to our current code. And so you kind of use it as a little bit of a tactic for properties that are typically not maintained well.
But I just made me worry that the 18 months, it seems like, I'm trying to find, I have some notes on what other towns do.
Could there be an exception if a property owner can't make the 18 months?
Yeah, and that's why that language is a little bit squishy already. To
Okay.
allow, basically, if you're substantially working towards rebuilding, then we're going to consider that that's okay.
So Golden allows a damaged non-conforming building to restart if required permits are sought within a year and don't lapse. And
That's
then
less.
and then it may approve extensions when the owner demonstrates a reasonable effort and diligence. And then others, like if there is an insurance claim, delays, or contractor availability, like they allow extensions.
And I think that's the wiggle room we have baked in. Like if you come to us and say like, hey, I'm just waiting on my insurance claim, we'll say like, all right, you're diligently pursuing it. We're not going to ding you for that.
Right, but I don't know, do we define what diligently?
No, and I think it's for the exact reason you just said, that you can't really predict it. And it
Yeah.
allows, in the case of a widespread issue or a lot of insurance claims, folks have a lot more wiggle room, and your staff is going to use that standard reasonably. But these are great questions, and I love that you brought up nonconformities, because this is one of the sections no one ever talks about.
Well, I have one of those structures that's on the property line, so I'm all about nonconformity. Quite literally.
Are there other questions for, from council members for our town attorney at this consolidated workshop before we have first reading at the next meeting? Can I just see if other council members have any other questions? So I think you did a really good job of covering everything, but if there are any, I've got one also, but Councilmember Bailey, it sounds like you have more, and other people don't have.
What about the burden of proof being on the owner to establish the legal nonconforming status?
Yeah, so I mean, think about the reverse. Are you going to have your staff spend time looking up the historic records of a property to ensure that it was built in conformance? Probably don't want to be spending staff resources, which will certainly mean legal resources too. So it can be very costly. I understand the tension, but I think in practice,
I think in Denver, their zoning administrator determines nonconforming status, if I'm not mistaken.
right. So I mean, in that case, I'm wondering who actually presents the evidence. I would have to actually look.
Yeah.
But if
I just worry about like records not being complete or like, that kind of thing. But
yeah, and again, if they feel like they've been wrongly assessed, they can appeal. Go get a variance. go to your BOA and see if they would judge it differently.
I had a question, at one point we talked about exterior lights and the Edison lights.
Oh, yeah.
Where did we land on that?
Yeah, let's bring that up. Again, so if I was in your table of contents, I know you're talking about a development standard, so I'd be in Article 4, and you said exterior lighting, so got some sections, so I'm down here. And we did do a exemption for that, so it's going to be right in here in applicability. All of these are exempt, and the exact exemption is low intensity accent lighting directed onto landscaping and decorative outdoor string lighting located in rear yards.
Okay, perfect.
So that's all exempt.
Perfect.
So will not have to be dark sky.
And the decorative seasonal lighting associated with a holiday, right now we've got it limited, it can be no more than 30 consecutive days, is that correct?
Yep, right.
I would suggest that in our town, that might not be popular, that it might be okay to have seasonal lighting on the outside, on the exterior of homes year-round. How does council feel about that?
To limit those kinds of restrictions seems very HOA to me, and that's the uniqueness of Mountain View.
I
If
agree.
you want to do it, do it.
Okay.
Totally fine with limiting that.
So looks like we've got head nods. I'm just removing that altogether.
Yeah, so
Thank
are
you.
we in agreement, Councilmember Debner, to remove that?
Yeah, I mean, there's the rule of thumb that Christmas lights come down when the stock show goes on. I don't know if you've heard of that.
After the
After the stock show, not
Yeah.
but we're not gonna require it.
And I will say the one thing I've seen in practice, and you're right, it is a very prescriptive. I've seen this actually enforced in a couple of communities. I can't remember what they're called. I think they're like skeletors.
Oh,
Right, yeah.
And people like put big lights on them and decorate them up for every holiday. So this would
Yes.
prevent that kind of thing. But if you don't care, then
Okay, so, and I haven't heard from Councilmember Davis. Do you agree in removing that restriction?
Yes.
Thank you.
okay, great. Bring that up.
So if there are no other questions from council, then we can go straight into public comment on this workshop. Or we could take a break and have public comment on this workshop in combination with the full public comment for the meeting after the break. How do people,
I like your suggestion.
the break?
The break and then the
And
public
then
comment.
combined public comment. Are we in agreement? Okay, so therefore it's 8:44. We'll take a 10-minute break and be back here with public comment. Thank you. It is 8:54 and we are bringing the meeting back to order. We're gonna start off with agenda item number 6, which is our public comment period. The public comment period is gonna be combined for our land use code workshop as well as general public comment. And I will read the rules. A person who wishes to give public comment at a meeting, whether in person or virtually, must sign up and provide their name and town residency status prior to speaking. Anonymous comments shall not be accepted. Upon a reasonable determination that the commenter has not accurately identified themselves, the town reserves the right to require additional information for verification. Written comments must be submitted 24 hours prior to the meeting and provide the same required information. Written comments shall be included in the agenda or as a table setting, but shall not be read aloud. All virtual commenters shall provide the required information prior to being given the floor by using the chat feature on Zoom. Until the information is provided, the commenter must remain muted. Please accept the clerk's invitation to become a panelist if you are attending virtually and wish to provide a comment. All virtual commenters must have their camera on for the entirety of their comment unless they have notified the clerk 24 hours prior to the meeting and verified their residency status. The total time for any comment period is 30 minutes unless a longer time is approved by council majority vote. No person shall be allotted more than 3 minutes. Each person may speak only once. The town for each comment period, the town encourages respectful discourse and desires that everyone get a chance to speak uninterrupted. Council must listen attentively to the comments, but no response shall be given, provided that the mayor or council by motion may direct staff to follow up. When staff follows up, the mayor and council shall be carbon copied on the email. You have the floor.
Jody Dosh.
I'm gonna just pull these up over here, just going around back.
I want to thank Austin for all the hard work he's been doing and all you guys for listening and everything. But this started because of the large houses that have been built. There were many people that signed that moratorium, and it also in some of the surveys, it is the majority. And this does nothing to stop that. 36 feet is too high, so is 34. You could have gone to 30. So I'm not happy with some of the people. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Is there anybody else in the room?
No, that's.
I'll see some.
We'll need you to sign up. Name and residence.
Okay, a couple of things.
Your name.
Okay.
Maybe the residencies, yes.
Yes.
All right. I'm Cole Rhodes. I live on 3444 Chase Street. Just a couple of things. Height stuff, I don't really care about it that much. I think it's cool that you guys are thinking to get more revenue in here. I think the way that you go about it is going to say a lot. For the hotel, I think if it can be artfully done, boutique hospitality, I think all of your heads are in the right place for that. Ramble Hotel downtown, I don't know, just like thinking creatively with that, warm lighting, a lot of cool stuff. This is from Becca, by the way, my wife. She's a super high-end interior designer, so I'm just reading what she said. So like warm lighting and everything like that, but yeah, and then with the DOLA stuff, I also appreciate you guys doing that because that's something that we want to start for ADU. Yeah, so I think that's it. I'm pretty happy with the way that everything's going, and yeah, so I'm gonna go eat some dinner.
Thank you very much
Yeah,
for
thank you.
attending, and thanks for your comment.
No, Teresa Freeman wanted to provide a comment. She declined to become a panelist.
So if Teresa Freeman, if you see an invitation to become a panelist, if you accept that invitation, rather than decline it, it will allow you to turn on your camera and your mic.
There we go.
Are you able to turn on your camera and your mic now? We see you available on our screen. Thank you. We still can't hear you. We need to have you unmute yourself, please.
There we go. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Oh, okay. Teresa Freeman, 4161 Ames. I'm here tonight because of what happened at the July 19th meeting. Our council has adopted rules of decorum that recognize the mayor's responsibility to conduct meetings with fairness, professionalism, and respect. Those standards exist for us to trust our government, and they should be applied equally to everyone, including the person presiding over the meetings. I want to be very clear about something. The staff report itself was inappropriate. It included comments about a longtime respected resident that should never have been included in a public staff report. Because we currently operate under a strong mayor form of government, is it fair to ask if there were concerns with that report? Isn't the mayor ultimately responsible for approval of the packet? The report should have been discussed privately before, not through a public reprimand of a staff member during the open meeting. Good leadership requires accountability, but also requires judgment. The best leaders praise in public and correct in private. Reprihanding in public sends the wrong message, not only to staff, but to every resident watching. My biggest concern is accountability. If residents, staff, and council members are expected to follow standards of conduct, then those same standards must apply also to the mayor. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Do we have anybody else who'd like to provide a comment?
No one has raised their hand.
Okay. Therefore, we will move on to agenda item number 7. For agenda item number 7, we need a motion and a second to suspend the rules and allow 2 of our council members to attend this executive session remotely.
I make the motion.
So moved by Mayor Pro Tem. Do we have a second? To allow our 2 council members who've seconded. Is there any discussion? Will the clerk please call the vote?
Mayor Pro Tem Aldean,
Yes.
Councilmember Bailey,
Yes.
Councilmember Davis,
Yes.
Councilmember Dedner,
Yes.
Councilmember Lasher.
Yes.
The motion passes. Thank you. Therefore, we need a motion.
Okay. I move that the town council enter into executive session to determine positions relative to matters that may be subject to negotiations, develop a strategy for negotiations, and/or instruct negotiators pursuant of C.R.S. 24-6-402 4E regarding an automated vehicle identification system service agreement.
Second.
And it's seconded. Will the clerk please call the vote?
Mayor Pro Tem Aldean,
Yes.
Councilmember Bailey,
Yes.
Councilmember Davis,
Yes.
Councilmember Dedner,
Yes.
Councilmember Lasher.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. We will go into the other parting. Let's just say that we're at agenda item number 8, and we're on page 71 of our packet, and our town administrator has the floor.
So this is the same IGA we had last year for the coordinated election from Jefferson County. Pretty routine. I don't think there's any changes from this year to last year. And I would entertain any questions.
Questions or discussion from council? Therefore, we're looking for a motion to approve the resolution as on the floor.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Bailey and seconded. Do we have any further debate? Hearing none, will the clerk please call the vote?
Mayor Pro Tem Aldean,
Yes.
Councilmember Bailey,
Yes.
Councilmember Davis,
Yes.
Councilmember Dedner,
Yes.
Councilmember Lasher.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. We're on to agenda item number 9. The packet information starts on page 97 of our packet, and our town administrator again has the floor.
So with the new opening of our Public Works Department, I am proposing a dual role of a building inspector / public works director. I think the goal here is currently we're exhausting a lot of the general fund money to go to a third party resource. And if we bring the building inspection piece in-house, that's the most expensive part of your building department contract because it's usually an hourly rate and they charge drive time to do 1 inspection or 15 depending on how many are called it. And so this is part of the trend that we've been moving towards with staff where we're asking everybody to wear multiple hats and do multiple roles. And realistically with the chief and I stepping in with a lot of the public works day-to-day duties, I think this is a manageable workload for one position. So I would entertain any questions.
I have questions. I don't know if
Councilmember Lasher?
I just was curious if, I don't know, like when Save Build or Ridge has come and looked at my properties or whatever, it's like the master electrician like comes out and checks that. So it's like, is this job going to be, oh, go ahead.
The caveat with electrical inspectors is the state of Colorado requires you to be a journeyman. Not
Yeah.
every inspector is a journeyman. So if we don't have a journeyman inspector, the state has to provide one for those inspections
Okay.
at no cost.
Okay.
And so I think that's why we can manage doing that. Some states like Idaho require your plumbing inspections to
Yeah.
be by a journeyman, and the electrical by a journeyman. Colorado only requires electrical inspections to be done by a journeyman.
Okay. Okay. One of my questions.
So if an applicant for this job,
Is a combo inspector but not a journeyman electrician, the state has to come in and do those inspections for us. They're required to.
well, what's the timeline for that? I
Uh,
hadn't thought about that.
they have to adhere to the same timelines as our building department. So usually it's pretty quick.
Okay.
Because I know here, like, you could, if you book it by 4 p.m., before 4 p.m., they'll do it the next day.
And so this person would have to coordinate with the state to bring an inspector in, but because of your location, most of the state inspectors are located in close
Okay.
proximity. So I don't foresee that being an issue. If we were having to have them drive up to Georgetown or something like that, it may take longer.
Do we have any community members online at all?
Yes, there's still 6
Okay.
participants.
Thank you. Sorry for the interruption. Other council discussion or questions for staff? I'm sorry, I'm going to make sure everybody has a chance to speak before we go hear from a second time. Councilmember Bailey?
So I noticed that this job would do code enforcement. I guess I'm a little confused as where I know the PD has been doing some code enforcement, and so I just was wondering what.
So the concept is, if you are a building inspector, you already know how to interpret code. And so going to the nuisance code is kind of a natural transition, and they have enough experience to be able to adhere to that properly and effectively. But the way the code is written, regardless, any citation written in court has to go through the PD. So they would have to work very closely with the PD, and it would be a teamwork situation.
Okay, so PD is still involved in code enforcement.
Yes.
Even with the long hiring of this position.
Yes.
I mean, per our charter, PD's responsible. Any code enforcement outside of that is delegated. Councilmember Devner?
Yes, I think this combination role is brilliant. I do wonder, in the event of a vacancy for this position, would we have like a backup building inspector if once we fill it and we had a vacancy?
So that would be part of the RFP contract negotiations for coverage for vacations and things like that.
Okay.
On-call building inspector.
An ARF?
The RFP we put out for building department services, we would put that in the contract.
Right.
They require on-call support in case this person is out sick or on vacation.
There are backups.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
that's great. Thank you.
Change to our RFP?
No, it would be an hourly pricing that would be in the contract.
Councilmember Davis and Mayor Pro Tem, any questions for staff before we go back to Councilmember Velasher?
No, I don't have any questions, thanks.
No,
Thank you. Councilmember Velasher?
So I know when I've submitted plans or whatever, like the permit tech will go through and make sure that all my required documents are submitted. If not, then they send it back, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then it goes through each department, like in like we bridge or
Planning,
here,
plan
planning, right? So
review.
then it's like the zoning, the engineer, the building department, everything like that. You know, they're the ones that sign off and make sure that I have my electrical outlets 6 feet apart and everything like that. So is our in-house person going to be doing that and signing off on that? And if so, like, because I feel like we're third, partying it out. So like our legal, goes down because it's kind of on them. So like if we're doing it in-house and then
I don't know if the liability actually goes on them because of the indemnification process of the contracts. It's always that sticking point of any contract because they don't want to take responsibility. They want it all on the municipality, and then the municipality's always like, no, the indemnification is on you. So I would have to look at the current contract we have, but I think it's kind of one of those situations where it depends on what kind of contract you have with indemnification. Am I right?
So all of our standard forms require 100% indemnification from the contracting party. But you're right to say that it's often a sticking point, and often what happens in practice is I will just say like no until they walk away. And then when they walk away, they're like bringing it to you and staff and saying like, hey, these guys are walking away, we're gonna lose them if we don't give a lawyer here. And then it's a concession, and when we make this concessions, I try to flag a few in the meeting. We did that not long ago, but I can't remember what it was.
So how does governmental immunity play in with an employee?
Yeah, so governmental immunity, the TGIA, really only covers tort claims. So it's not contract claims. And that's why in our contracts it's important to have that separate indemnification clause.
But if they were an employee, how does that play in?
Oh, if they're an employee, then they're under our governmental immunity.
And then
Sorry.
would they be the ones checking off? This is she's it's the same question. She just answered that. Would they be the ones checking off like the zoning and the electrical and the plumbing?
No, so
or
we'll still have to use a contract planner because the
Okay.
contract planner does all the zoning requirements.
okay.
Now, the permit tech situation would be an in-house employee, or depending on what kind of RFP responses we get for the building department, and if they would supply a permit tech. But most of that we're doing ourselves anyway. Having somebody in-house that's a plan reviewer and an inspector would actually increase the turnaround time for building permit reviews because they're in-house and you can communicate more efficiently with staff.
Mm-hmm.
Councilmember Bailey?
Alongside, yeah, I think it's high time we can do this in-house and have some symbiosis and some cost savings, and also being under our immunity clause would be a huge win for the legal business of the town. It's great. Thank you.
I just have like a lot of concerns about it just because I feel like Safefield does a great job, and like, people I worked with in Wheat Ridge, and they don't even have their own like in-house people. Is like what
Wheat Ridge uses Charles Abbott and
Yeah.
Associates, and
Yeah.
they are a third party that only services Wheat Ridge, and they like scaled down so much that they're kind of leaving the game.
Okay, but I just think it's like very professional. Like everyone I've worked with at Safefield has been professional, so it's just kind of like I just kind of am worried that things aren't going to be as seamless as they've been.
I think my concern is right now we have a building department contract where they take 85% of all of our building permit fees, and that is a huge drain to your general fund revenue. If we're looking at new development, giving them 85%, well, they came back with an hourly rate, which is going to be even more expensive than our 85% of permit fee. And you get one large commercial development that's a $300,000 permit, and you're left with a small 15% chunk of that.
Yeah.
Really is going to impact the town moving forward in terms of our funding.
I just know commercially do like so many more inspections and like it's so I just want to make sure that like the person we hire is capable of like doing these huge commercial, like hopefully they'll come in and he'll be able to do that. Like I don't feel like him doing the one house or two houses a year that are being built. I think he's capable of doing that. But when we hopefully passing everything and then getting a big business that wants to come in or Sheridan or something, like I just want to make sure that
So-
he's capable of that.
Any ICC combo inspector has to have the same certs for residential and commercial.
Mhm.
And so they're all trained by ICC with the same certifications. So it's really just finding somebody who could do the building department piece and the public works section.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're ICC certified for combo, you're ICC certified for combo.
Mhm.
That's the minimum requirement for any building inspector.
Yeah.
Do you feel good about the salary range for considering how this is going to be a unicorn of a person?
It will be a unicorn of a person, but I think also the salary alone doesn't factor in the benefits. And knowing the market right now, there's a lot of building inspectors that are leaving third-party companies and going to jurisdictions because of the stability and having one office to go to and knowing exactly what jurisdiction you're in. I think that's a big benefit as well.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of, would we have a contract and a severance package? Are you proposing that? Or are we?
No, that was only proposed for the chief and the administrator.
Okay. So no contract or a contract, just not a severance package?
You can do an employment agreement for sure, never hurts. But yes, severance is typically limited to town officials.
Okay. Everybody's comfortable moving forward, then we are looking for a motion to approve the resolution on the floor.
Second.
Moved by Andy and seconded. Do we have any further debate, statements for or against from council members?
Excited to see what we get. Or who we get, I should say.
Hearing no further debate, will the clerk please call vote?
Mayor Pro Tem Albion.
Yes.
Councilmember Bailey.
Yes.
Councilmember Davis.
Yes.
Councilmember Devner.
Yes.
Councilmember Lasher.
No. Motion passes 4-1. Moving on to agenda item number 10, we're at an ethics conversation, which is a discussion our town attorney will lead.
Alright, so there's two different items in the packet for this agenda item. The first is a draft ordinance that rewrites your code of ethics, and it really rewrites it primarily for clarity and fixes.
Can we put it on the screen, that table?
Oh, sure.
By any chance? I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Do you need to be a panelist again?
Yeah, let me rejoin the meeting.
It's just such a visual. It would be helpful.
Yeah, no problem. Just give me 1 minute.
So, yeah, for the record, it's page 110 of our packet. And there's just a table that he's going to talk us through.
Alright, it looks like I might still be balanced, yeah.
Sorry about that.
Oh no, you're good. Okay, so
Councilmember Davis is all blurred.
alrighty. Okay, so there's two items in the packet. Like I said, the first one is related to a rewrite of the Code of Ethics, and it really just makes a lot of big clarification changes that I do recommend council take up. But we didn't think it was, well, I should say, we thought it was a bad idea to take a step back because there were some questions on the 3 enforcement procedures that are in place now, and whether council wanted to go to a different approach or just generally just having some more education around those 3 enforcement processes. And so I've laid them out here to try to summarize some of the differences between the two. And I would say moving from, I mean, I think the table speaks for itself. I'm happy to answer any questions, but generally moving from the left column to the right, this is sort of the most severe process of enforcement in the town, right? So removal of an elected official. And then in the middle, you have a code of ethics, where that's sort of right there in the middle, where it's can be severe as far as the effect of a decision, but it in itself could not be severe. It's much more broader. And then the council rules of procedure really just apply to those rules. So we're talking more about meeting procedure than we are about ethics and what have you, although I will say there is decorum requirements in the rules. And so, again, just trying to flesh out some of the differences here is that these all kind of are a Venn diagram where the middle will touch some, but they all also have their own separate bubble. And so I think that's where part of the confusion comes. For instance, a removal could be for violation of the Code of Ethics. That is grounds for removal in the code. To be able to institute that removal process, you may go through the separate process for finding a violation of the Code of Ethics in that article, or you may not, and just move straight to a removal proceeding. When you violate the rules, that is not grounds for a removal. Violation of the rules could mean something as simple as talking without being recognized on the floor. So there's a reason that sort of there's a distinction at least between enforcement of the rules and enforcement of the other two processes. Now, I know this is really confusing, and so to me, if you wanted to simplify things, this would be one way to do so. It would be to get rid of the enforcement process in the Code of Ethics and have it absorbed by the enforcement process in the rules. And so essentially you'd say, like, hey, here's the Code of Ethics, here's all the requirements. Any enforcement of the Code of Ethics shall be in accordance with the rules process for enforcement. That's one way to simplify the process, and that would eliminate one additional enforcement mechanism, or I should say combine one, where the Code of Ethics would instead just become a standard of ethics without an enforcement process. And violations of those Code of Ethics would go through the council rules to find a violation if council deems appropriate. Or again, you could go straight to a removal proceeding. That kind of help clarify it all. Is there any kind of questions or?
That last part was a little muddy still, sorry.
Okay. Is there?
So you're saying that you could totally divorce the ethics code from any kind of enforcement? So you just have this is what you shall adhere to.
Right. Basically, I would, instead of having this own separate enforcement mechanism, which actually this is the draft ordinance, so I've already taken it out. So in the draft ordinance, I think it does what no, it doesn't, sorry.
No, it doesn't.
Then,
Yeah.
in the draft ordinance, it still does have a separate enforcement mechanism, but what I did was mirror it off the rules. That's not what you have today. So what you have today is as described in the table, and it's really a completely separate enforcement process, different from the removal or a rules violation process. And I will tell you, if you look at the current code, it's quite confusing, because it says things like a hearing may be required if the enforcement action is brought by a council member, but it doesn't say sort of what happens, what's the process when someone else brings an enforcement action. So there's some issues within the Code of Ethics that we should clarify one way or another, but if council's goal is to go beyond clarification and instead look at simplifying these processes, one way to do that is you get rid of the enforcement process and the Code of Ethics and combine it with your rules process.
There's some concern about that just because council rules change more frequently and the code doesn't change as frequently. Could we do the opposite?
Yeah, so you could, yeah, that makes sense too. Could basically just use the process that we created in the rules of the magistrate and just use that for Code of Ethics enforcement. And then in the rules and Bob's rules, you already have enforcement of meeting procedure. Actually, that makes kind of more sense. Sorry, it's late. I'm talking about loud.
Okay, it makes sense.
So if you took the enforcement process out of the rules and then basically mirrored that process in the Code of Ethics, then any Code of Ethics violation would be brought basically under your current third-party magistrate process that you have in the rules. It would only be applicable to a Code of Ethics violation. If there's any other type of violation of just the rules, like relating to meeting procedure, you have to just use Bob's rules, which is just point of orders and appeals.
So that it's more in keeping with the violation, seriousness of the violation.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. It would be definitely a simplification.
Councilmember Debner?
Yeah. I guess I'm in support and was thinking the same things as Mayor Mitchum about having the removal procedure or enforcement mechanism in the Chapter 2 Code of Ethics. Because when I was looking at other towns' Code of Ethics, that's kind of seems to be the standard, is that enforcement mechanism is in the kind of list of expectations.
Okay. So again, just to clarify, that would remove the separate enforcement process that we currently have in the rules. Put it into the ordinance for the Code of Ethics, basically mirror that process in the Code of Ethics. So we wouldn't have, for instance, if someone alleged some violation of our rules, you wouldn't have a separate third-party magistrate process for that, and instead it would just be point of orders and appeals on the floor.
Mayor Pro Tem?
So there seems to be situations where conduct raises legitimate ethic concerns, but I don't believe that the code does not clearly address it or provide a meaningful path for accountability. I think it is, I think council, we need to ask whether the code is doing what we intended it to do Is it meant to be like an exhaustive checklist where conduct cannot be an ethic violation unless the exact behavior is specifically identified? Should we also include carefully defined general standards for misuse of public office? And so those are my thoughts.
Is that kind of for council or?
Do you have specifics?
In general, just in general. I don't know if our code is really what we intended it to do.
Yeah, I think if you're looking to add additional general restrictions as I go here in this 2420, you can see like basically whenever this was drafted originally, and I did like a substantial rewrite for clarity throughout, and so you'll see that. I can talk through that once this actually comes to the floor. You'll see it mostly mimics the state code of ethics, though. Like as far as what is required of an elected official ethically. So it's don't disclose confidential information. That's the first one. Don't accept a gift from someone who's trying to persuade you to vote in some way. Don't receive compensation for someone that you have a conflict from. I mean, it's the things that sort of we're all sort of generally aware of, I think. I don't think any of these would be surprising. And the conflict of interest one, obviously, which we are very familiar with because we practice it for every meeting. Mm-hmm. So those are the types of things in your current code of ethics. I think if we're looking for other additional general restrictions, I think it'd be helpful, like maybe bring some examples to the table if you have any, and then maybe we can workshop that again, or how do we want to go about that?
I like that idea. I mean, I think it requires some research as far as, I mean, we have like 12 complaints and there's just breadcrumbs of what were the expectations of individuals for conduct. And we can look at those complaints and consider adding them to the section of the ethics code. So I think that's a good idea, like a second discussion.
So Councilmember Davis, and I think we have heard from Councilmember Lasher. I think we've heard from Councilmember Bailey already, if I'm not mistaken. Am I mistaken on that?
Nope.
Okay, thank you. I want to make sure that everybody has a chance to speak per our rules before we call on somebody a second time. Councilmember Davis, are you wanting to speak? No. Councilmember Lasher.
I just would like to point out when Councilmember Devner said that there's 12 complaints, we have received 6, I believe, back, and they have found no misdoing there. So I feel like a lot of people are just hanging on to like trying to find things, and I think at some point like we need to work together and we need to like respect what the residents wanted and say like, well, they appointed this, like they won the election, we should work together. Like if there's a big thing that they're doing, but it's like everyone's like there's 12 complaints, and it's like, but the complaints are coming back not showing things, and then it's like we're now trying to change the rules again to try to find something there. So it's like at some point I just feel like we need to just respect what the residents want, or do a recall and then be done with it, like I feel like every meeting it's like the same like circle of conversations.
Thank you. Councilmember Bailey?
Again, I don't agree with that assessment.
I know, I never do.
No, it's terrible, isn't it? We have differences of opinion.
I think it's very respectfully.
Oh, so I'm not being respectful now.
Okay, let's try to work as a team.
I think I think we need to have a separate complaints discussion that is divorced or it's related to, but I think we need to have our ethics code needs to work. There are missing pieces. We need to fix it, make it better, and I can see adding the enforcement stuff to code and making it more simplified. But we have some serious gaps to fill as far as I'm concerned in our ethics code, and I think that is partly related to what we discovered in these complaints.
So I think it'd be helpful to know where those gaps are.
I have
that
a whole
you name
list.
them. and list them. Yeah, I think that would be helpful.
Would it be helpful for you to email the list to Austin to review to maybe incorporate in another draft?
I mean, we could do
Why
that,
take it out of the public meeting?
but yeah, I just feel like it's better to do it here.
I mean, that's fine. I just,
I mean, I'm happy to just share with Austin after we have a discussion if the council decides we wanted to go that, make those kinds of changes, I'm happy to do that. But I feel like
I
we've got a lot.
genuinely want to understand, because I'm hearing 3 council members say that the ethics code is not sufficient, and that I may be reading between the lines, but I'm trying not to, that you feel as if the complaints should have been violations of the ethics code, and therefore you'd like to update the ethics code to reflect a stronger complaint system. Is that accurate? And if that's the case, what would you like to add into the ethics code?
That is not what I was saying. I was saying that we have gaps. I feel like we could do better as a municipality in having a beefed up ethics code, because I think that it's public trust, and I feel like it would owe to our residents to be to a high standard, and I think we have gaps to fill. That's all I'm saying.
I understand that, but can you share some specifics of what those gaps are?
Should I continue?
Please.
Okay. So I think we need to add in, I think we do need, to your point, I think we need to add in sort of like some sort of purpose around why we have an ethics code. Like, public office is a public trust. We're doing our duties faithfully, impartially, honestly, and we're preserving public confidence. Like, have some sort of a preamble, kind of what we talked about with our guiding statement in our land use code, just so that, center people on why we're doing this, right? I think we need to define things. What is misuse of office provisions? What's, we need something that creates a sort of a catch-all that is used to tie into the public use of public authority, not some just sort of morality clause. We're not going to be able to name every exhaustive thing that somebody might do, but there has to be some sort of a way that municipalities do this that a reasonable person would be like, yeah, that's pretty unethical behavior, and so let's plug that gap. We don't have anything in there about retaliation, intimidation, coercion, interfering with civic participation. There's just all kinds of stuff that we just don't have in there, but I don't know how to do that without going down the line and making an exhaustive list, because you can't come up with everything anyways. I don't know how people do it.
I'm not sure. Oh, sorry.
I have an idea. So I found it helpful because I had those same questions, and I would agree that kind of a policy statement and definitions would go a long way. And I think reviewing other municipality ethics code to see, okay, what misunderstandings that they have and what additions that they make to build a strong ethics policy that works for us. So,
sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if that's a matter of, sending it to Austin for review or giving staff direction to investigate.
I think it'd be helpful to have it at the table. I just don't know if we're ready for it right now. To me, I think if you have a bunch of examples of the different municipalities, maybe we can workshop this again. And if you send all those examples, let's include all of them in the packet. And I think we take a step back and get head nods to say, yep, we liked that one, let's add that one in, sort of thing. Because we're definitely not at a point for me to start drafting.
I don't think we're there. But I think we're missing things. I also think we need to revise our conflict provision, and that goes to our rules as well. But I feel like we're putting too much onus on a person to tell you they have a conflict, because there might be other conflicts someone else knows about and they don't want to disclose, and then you just don't even know. So I feel like you even could bring the public into that. If there's a member of the public who has had dealings with an elected official, and they feel like it's a violation or a conflict of interest for them to be voting on a particular issue, I feel like they should be able to bring that to the table. And that's not, we don't have it in our rules, it's not in our ethics code. I feel like that's missing. A third party being able to challenge somebody. and not just rely on self-disclosure. And I think we've had a conversation about this before. Like, we talked about this before.
Yeah.
Has there been a situation at the table where someone didn't disclose a conflict, or?
I'm not sure.
Oh, well, you talked about it before, so I was just
We
trying to be
talked about-
transparent.
I think when we
Well,
did
other
the
towns did.
I think when we did the
conflicts.
rules initially.
Yeah.
Is that what you're talking about?
Mhm.
Yeah. It's also reflected in our rules, and that's why we have the conflict declaration. I think that's where council landed on that prior policy discussion.
But I think it would be nice to take this up further, because I feel like there should be a way for people to have with knowledge about something and to share it, and it puts a lot on that person to disclose something, and there's no check on that. In my book.
Well, if they didn't disclose it, wouldn't that be malfeasance of office?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I think there should be you allow, I think that we could re-examine that conflict procedure.
Yeah. I mean, I think, again, I think it'd be helpful to maybe if everyone could like send in like sort of their examples and suggestions, and then without editing them, we just put them all in the packet for a work session.
Mm-hmm.
Is that way we can kind of go through them, or how do you guys want to move forward?
I see head nods. I think that's a good suggestion for a first, because it really needs to be specific. There's a lot of sort of frustration at the table around things not being adequate. So rather than talking sort of in broad strokes, let's bring what you would like to see to the table and have a full conversation. And if you have ideas from other municipalities that you would like to bring, let's discuss them and see what are their strengths and what are their weaknesses, and I'll have a good conversation about it.
Yeah.
Without,
And I would suggest looking at the draft in the packet, just because that ordinance does clarify a lot of the language, although it doesn't make any sort of those substantive changes we're discussing. So in my view, maybe the draft ordinance is a good place to start rather than the online version in the code, just because I think it does the first step of it reorganizes and simplifies the language. So
do we want to talk about the issue of narrowing who can file?
yeah, I think so. You can see like the applicability of in each one of these rows, and so you can see like who each provision is against. And I think this really helps define why separating these processes can be a little bit burdensome. Like, for instance, your code of ethic not only applies to town council, but it also applies to all your boards and commissions, like the BOAA. So you probably don't want to lose that and lose that enforcement ability. So we just have to be thoughtful about those kind of things. And then the by whom is also fairly different. I mean, obviously, a removal process can only be brought by an elected official against an elected official. But as you go down the row, you'll see it's a lot more lenient. Your council rules can be brought by any person, as drafted right now. And so that sort of is obviously as broad as you could possibly go. And then, yeah, the last applicability I think is pretty self-explanatory, but you can see the 4 reasons to which a member can be removed for. And then you can see what the other applicability or what the other enforcement provisions apply to. And again, the council rules of procedures apply very broadly as well. So it's not only that any person can bring it, but they can bring it against almost anything. They can bring a violation of the rules, code, or charter.
With the concept that the council is sort of a gatekeeper for.
Yeah, that's how we created that process. If you all remember when we created it several months ago, was that allow the initial gate to be wide open, let anyone bring it for any reason, and allow council to be the initial gatekeeper to reduce potentially the amount of complaints that are going through to the third-party magistrate. So the idea there is that council was sort of sifting at the beginning.
So that there's not a lot of duplication, and so that we don't have complaints that we're paying a magistrate $350 an hour for that are not, if they are true, violations of the code, rules, or charter. So that we're not spending $30,000 on these things. So if there's a way to take them out of that and put them into the code of ethics, put that enforcement, we might save some money as well, and make it something that maybe isn't open to somebody who lives in Zimbabwe.
Yeah, I think if we did consolidate those code of, or the enforcement process into the code of ethics, that would solve for that issue. And again, council can always change it, but in how I see it in other communities is like, you have someone in the public come forward during the 3-minute public comment period and say, you know, I think so-and-so did such and such. And then it's really on council to decide, like, should we investigate this? And if they decide they want to, then like,
And it's council who
Yeah.
says, let's investigate this, we take this seriously.
right. So I think, I guess, do you want to summarize the direction?
I feel like we've got a general agreement. I'm sorry, I'm gonna recognize Councilmember Devner first before we summarize.
I guess one question is, so different municipalities will do it differently. I found in my research preparing for this. So there's actually like a Ethics Watch report from 2016 that covers, you know, home rule municipalities and like how they have their ethics process configured. And like some do committees that are, some of them you know, it's council that is the ethics board. But some of them actually have municipal court deciding the ethics violation, which could be like an advantage to have like an independent third party. And my understanding is we'd already have a contract with our municipal court judge. So there's like a lot of different ways that we could address ethics concerns.
I think we have to amend that contract to actually cover that service, but yeah, that's an option.
Yeah, and it might be difficult since they are hired by council, they're appointed by council, so if they're making decisions against a member of the board that.
Fair.
But anyway, those are the ideas that we need to bring for our staff direction. I think we're all in agreement that we can each bring ideas and examples from other municipalities that you think are helpful for the discussion. Send them to Administrator Campfield. She'll include all of them in the packet. We will have a workshop on the issue to discuss it further.
Great.
Does that sound right?
Yeah, and I won't touch anything till then. 'Cause
Yes.
I don't want to like touch and then retouch. It's
More work.
efficient.
Yeah. Workshop. So I need verbal agreements from everybody that that's the accurate staff direction.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Councilmember Devner
Yes.
and Councilmember Davis.
Yes.
Thank you. Councilmember Devner, did you have a follow-up comment?
Yeah, I was just wondering if the doc, like the Word doc version of the draft could be shared. So that might be helpful.
We will,
We have it. That was Kendra.
Administrator Campfield, could you share the Word doc version of the draft,
With the board?
with the board? Is that what you would like, Councilmember?
I think that would be helpful for us.
And I
The
think
words off the table?
With the Word doc of the Code of Ethics.
The ordinance.
The draft
Okay.
ordinance,
How
right?
about
Is
just
that
send
what you
both?
were asking for, or the table? Both. We'll send both.
But I think maybe within the direction, we can maybe allow some like leeway if you have some additional examples you just want to bring forward.
Yes,
Please.
certainly.
I just found a really good one that was actually written by Kendra, so.
Nice. Wonderful. So then we'll amend that staff direction to include staff themselves bringing forth ideas, and staff's going to be sending out the Word doc version of the draft ordinance and the table for everybody's information. I need a verbal yes from everybody again.
Yes.
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 Councilmember Davis.
Yes.
Thank you. We're on to agenda item 11, which no action will be taken. Therefore, we're agenda item 12. There being no further business to come before this board, we are hereby adjourned at 10:16 p.m. Thank you, everybody.